Good evening, everyone. You well? Don't think anyone's even in here yet, but still. It's as good as possible and having a nice weekend. Oh, joined and muted, fair enough. How you doing? You alright?
Good bad, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Seem real quiet. I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time on TikTok, to be fair, recently. I've neglected. Every time I open it, it's got like 99 notifications, and I'm just like, ugh, I'll just show you again. I don't even look at them. But I haven't spent any time on making any content or anything. I just can't bother with it, to be honest.
Yeah,
I
I've just
think
been doing that.
I think I'd rather put the time into my YouTube just because it doesn't seem so. Even though obviously the audience is tiny in comparison, it doesn't seem so wasted. I don't feel like every time I'm making a video, like, is it going to get pulled?
Yeah, yeah. I've just been doing the damn CapCut videos at the minute. I'm just the odd one anyway.
At the
Just
end of the
chucking a
day,
vegan message on
whatever
them.
works.
Yeah, I get more views doing that than I do on anything else I do. So I'm like, rather than sitting there kind of spending hours trying to record something and then edit something, stitch things together, I can literally spend 30 seconds, put a
Yeah, to
CapCut
be fair, the
together with.
CapCut ones, you haven't really got to do anything, especially if you've already
Nah.
got like a video or a photo that suits. Like it's like 2 minutes in it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that one that the last one I did was a Russell Brand one, and it was basically just saying, yeah, I would have done that, but I decided not to. I would have listened to that, but I decided not to. And it was all I did was got a screenshot of what veganism is from, obviously how veganism is not just about food, from the Vegan Society website, and just screenshot it and just chucked it on. And then Matthew Nesbitt come on and was like, it literally is just a diet, and I was
I
like,
think
oh,
Matthew Nesbitt's blocked me, because quite often now I'll see like on one of Roger's videos, for example, it'll say like 6 comments and I click on them and they're not there. And I'm like, I know it's you. I know it's him.
yeah. I think he's got a new account because I blocked everyone that I was aware that he had.
See, I
Um,
never used to block him because he was just easy sort of like engagement. But I think he blocked me. I think he got fed up with the fact that I kept tagging him in videos and things. Hi, Roger, you're
Mhm.
right. And
Hello
welcome,
there.
everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Kev.
Yeah, I kind of took Matthew under my wing for about a week and I kept tagging him in things. And I think he got a bit frustrated with it. But he kept spending all his time in our lives and on my videos and stuff. So I thought he wanted some attention. So I gave it to him. And I think he regretted it.
I think he just obviously he just tries to wind you up, doesn't he? And
Yeah,
as
yeah,
soon as
he just wants to antagonize at the end of the
yeah,
day.
as
He
soon as you
doesn't
don't
want
bite, he
actually
wanders off.
any consequence of that.
Yeah, exactly.
So what did I miss? I missed the beginning of all that.
Oh, we was just talking about TikTok in general, and how I haven't put any effort into making any videos, and Kev's just been using the CapCut templates for exactly the same reason.
Yeah,
But
it's just if you don't play the game with the daft trends, you don't really get kind of much engagement. So I've found that I get the most views and the most engagement from just doing like what you see the CapCut viral videos going around, and it'll be a template and it'll just have like a caption on there, and that's pretty much it. So I've just been putting like a vegan message on a couple of them, and I've been having a few decent conversations in the comment section on the odd one. But yeah,
I thank you for the gifts. Is that T as in T from exposing cruelty? If so,
I think it
you
is. Yeah,
certainly don't need to send me anything. Thank you for what you're doing. But yeah, so I don't know what our subject matter is for tonight, but at some point we definitely need to discuss that comment because I think there's quite a lot in there. We can do that first if you want.
was there a helicopter just taking off in your house there,
No,
Andy?
that's the dog giving me a shake.
Eh,
Just throwing Andy around like a rag doll.
Oh no, that's just him literally shaking his chops. He's got quite a lot of excess skin around his face, so whenever he shakes, you just hear it all.
Yeah, I'm like that nowadays. First of all, because I didn't quite understand the context. But about this Peace Prize, or do you want to talk about that later?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that wasn't even the comment that I was thinking about. Yeah, that was just something that I noticed in a group where it was basically like we need to get an animal rights activist
Oh,
to win the
God,
Nobel
yeah.
Peace Prize. I'm assuming for for the attention that it would bring. And then the names that were listed, none of them were animal rights based. None of them would have talked about anything apart from like reducitarian and welfareism. I mean, it was quite sad to see the list, really. But yeah, no, the one I was thinking of was actually from the Marshall and Millions group, the two dogs, and it just
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah. I know that.
really,
It's just that I couldn't
yeah.
understand. You see, I was wondering whether there was a proposal to have an animal advocate as, you know,
Not that. No, I think it was just someone's suggestion. It would be great if, well, yeah, but
Alu, uh, Joaquin Phoenix. Well, there you see that another controversial one straight off.
I mean, what's he going to win the Nobel Peace Prize for? Because if it's going to be something that like some sort of literature or something, then yeah, you wouldn't want someone that thinks it's okay to do certain things, right? In it, it would have to be real
Yeah.
strict.
Yeah. I
And all
think
of
if
those names that were suggested, none of them qualified.
Well, Philip Woolen was there, I think. Might have been the closest, and
Yeah.
also, I suppose people would think in terms of just the symmetry, really.
Oh, Matthew must have heard us talking about him. Is here? Oh, we're
yeah,
still
Will
there
talking
he
about
is.
Tuttle.
barbecue. Keep that to yourself.
Will Tuttle would
Hello.
be interesting, wouldn't it?
Hi, Lou. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see everyone today.
Alan, are you
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's good to see you on the live. Did you get interrupted by the rain? It's been smashing it down here most of the day.
Yeah, a little bit, a tiny bit. But it was okay. I mean, it was time anyway. I think people were starting to wrap up by then.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect timing. It was about 3:10 by then, and we were supposed to finish at 3. But also, it was only a bit of drizzle, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was spitting down.
So anyway, sorry, what was you saying, Roger, before Lou joined?
Well, I was just thinking in terms of symmetry and the name, then Will Turtle would be an interesting one in relation to that, because in some senses he stands for peace. But I think he might have run foul of a few people during the pandemic for certain things that he might have said or something. I don't know.
What was that, vaccine related?
I think so, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it would be an interesting one. I mean, obviously, we'd like to think of someone like Reagan, wouldn't we? I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Roger.
Yeah. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but yeah, there's definitely better candidates than any other ones that were put down. Yeah, I mean, Melanie Joy was mentioned a couple of times, which is pretty concerning. But yeah,
Yeah.
but the problem is, we all know if there was going to be a Nobel Peace Prize awarded at any point in the very near future to anyone, it would be Peter Singer. Wouldn't it be anyone else?
Well, I mean, obviously, none of us probably know the criteria of what the Peace Prize would be, actually.
No, I'm not
No.
100% sure what it actually is. And it's kind of like isn't it like a huge sort of accolade towards society or towards the world? It's something that you've done that's kind of changed things. But I'm not actually sure in terms of the criteria, to be honest.
Yeah, but
Roger, can I ask you? Oh, sorry.
well, I was just going to say, presumably the word peace has got to be relevant.
You would think so, but I don't think it's ever mattered in the past, right?
Oh,
It's whether or not they consider peace towards all Earthlings or just peace towards humans as well.
Well, yeah, and even that would be selective humans that are the right
Yeah,
color, race, religion, creed, whatever. Yeah.
in the right place at the right
Yeah,
time.
yeah, as long as they do as they're told and keep their mouth shut, kind of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jennifer's speculating whether Spider Buzz was at a vegan barbecue. I think it
Most
probably.
likely,
I
he
think it
spends all his
was.
time at a vegan event. I'm surprised. I'm not sure where he's actually located.
So, did somebody shout my name? I'm not here.
Yes.
Okay, go on.
Question for you. When I said Joaquin Phoenix on the thing, you said controversial. Why? What's the story with him?
Oh, I think his latest film. He was riding a horses again. Like
Ah,
there was one not long after the big talk. The kind of speech. The speech.
hmm
There was a cowboy film he was in, but this one is a kind of almost like some kind of Roman warrior type thing. A gladiator type thing, I think. And
Yeah,
so
which also is convenient because he rode a horse in Gladiator too.
Gladiator 1 or Gladiator 2?
There's a no in Gladiator 2, as in also.
Yeah, I did know that. I was trying to make a joke. Never mind.
There's a third film as well, but I can't remember what it's called.
It was Gladiators in Space.
I can't remember what's the one that really caused up a stir about 2 years ago, because obviously Gladiator is quite an old film now.
Joker.
No, and it's all horse riding related.
Something Brothers or something, wasn't it? Something.
I can't remember. I know there's at least 3 films where in each time he's kind of said, yeah, I didn't feel happy about it, and maybe next time when it gets brought up, I'll think differently. And then it's happened again, and he said, "Well, maybe next time when it happens, I won't do it." And then it's happened again.
Well,
And yeah,
here's an interesting vegan question, though, right? Is if you were in the same position as Phoenix, and presumably fairly kind of you could probably rich enough to pick and choose now,
yeah.
but it would saying, well, have a stunt double do it instead. But I mean, it's still being done, isn't it? So how would you feel about that?
Well, my argument, if I was in this position, would be, come on, we can literally CGI anything
Yes.
these
I was
days.
going to say that,
Just fake it. I mean, literally, the whole film is CGI, right? They're not in a studio setting fire to things. The whole thing is fake. So just pretend there's a horse there. You can do that. It's not a problem.
I wouldn't think they
That would
could
be my stance.
CGI a horse underneath somebody.
I mean, even to the point where, let's just look at it this way. Let's say it costs an extra £60,000 to CGI the horse. Take it out of my salary. That's
yeah.
how important this should be.
And
Well, I mean,
looking
with
at
Game of Thrones, they got her riding dragons. I mean,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
exactly that. Yeah,
like
exactly.
with Avatar, they've got blue aliens
Well, even in
riding
Never-Ending
dragons and God
Story,
knows what.
right? I mean, it's possible.
Well, I
Oh, well,
think
that's what
as
they
well.
should have done then. They should have hired the dragons, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I
But
think it's the clout as
that would
well.
be my stance. Exactly as you say. I mean, if it wasn't cemented before, then Joker absolutely cemented you on the Hollywood scene. You can pick and choose whatever films you want. No, that's my stance. I'm not willing to break it. You either work around me or find someone else.
I mean, yeah, exactly that. So Joaquin Phoenix, yes, he probably can afford to pick and choose the roles that he wants to do, but if he finds a role that he absolutely, definitely, like, it's bang on right for him, then I'm not being funny, but he's a critically acclaimed actor. He will. It's not just the fact that he can just walk away, and they know that he can just walk away. So it's, if you want me, these are my terms.
Yeah, well, I know
Um,
that, Kev, but I'm trying to kind of tease out a kind of camp out question here. Is there such a thing as a vegan film?
I suppose. Well, technically, a vegan film would have to have a plant-based food system on site, and only that. It would have to be, more environmentally friendly, wouldn't it? I suppose, because you'd have to think about habitat and all that sort of stuff.
Wow,
Um,
I was just sat here thinking. I mean, obviously, if we're taking veganism to the extent, and I can't speak for all the staff. I mean, sometimes when you look at the credits of a film, it's like, fucking hell, there's 1,000 people that worked on this film, and like it's only half a dozen that have got any real attention. But what about something like animation? I mean, there's no harm or whatever to environment or anything if it's all made in a
yeah,
studio. I mean,
yeah, like
that could
something like
potentially.
Avatar is probably quite a good example of that, isn't it? Because that
Yeah.
was
If you
all
made some
pretty
sort
much
of
done in a
animation
studio.
or 3D film, then potentially you could limit that. Obviously, like I said, you'd have to take into consideration whether any of the staff were exploited. But in terms of who would be in it and how it would be filmed and all of that kind of thing, that would be probably as good as you'd get.
Yeah.
How about this one? We've got a comment here, and I was under strict instructions from Jennifer to read the comment, so I'm gonna. And this one is
I didn't harm anyone in the making of my film, except my brain watching some of the crap.
well, that doesn't count then. So yeah, Spiderbuzz says
Oh, can we not give him
answering
attention?
T. I've seen a video of vegan, a vegan presumably, complaining at her neighbour's barbecue so funny. But the thing is, that's actually, I mean, from a vegan point of view, a barbecue. I mean, I used to have that in my backyard in this kind of shared house. And it's pretty horrible. You've got to shut all your windows and everything, and you can
Yeah,
still
yeah.
smell it.
I'm lucky where I live now that because I'm in flats, that doesn't happen. But where I used to live, I was in between two quite big meat eaters, and every single summer, yeah, I'd have to close all the windows at the back because it's not just the smell whilst you're cooking; it lingers for hours and
Yeah,
hours
it
and
does.
hours
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
That video he's talking about as well, I I'm pretty confident, although I'm not 100% certain. I'm pretty confident it's one of these stupid setup things as well. You know, like when someone's like randomly stumbles upon some scenario, but it's
Oh,
clearly
right. Yeah,
acted.
yeah.
Right, okay. Is it got one of the same 4 or 5 actors that are in most of the other convenience
Yeah,
Yeah,
stores?
the
probably.
last one I saw, which was obviously a setup, was some so-called Karen was talking about contacting the police because some guy was just idling with his engine, which is supposed to be illegal. But the kind of punchline was the fact that it was an
It was
electric
a
car.
Tesla. Yeah.
But the point is, I don't think they can idle anyway, can they? Those things.
I
Electric.
thought idling was to do with the safety more so than the sort of.
Nah, so, I mean, idling in a car is when you're just sitting there with the engine running, but electric car obviously doesn't emit anything, even if the engine's engaged. But you're only actually consuming power if you accelerate. It's obviously consuming power to use the air conditioning, but the vehicle's not actually
Yeah,
like
so with the
the motor's
electric
not
car,
running.
you could still be sat there in the winter with the heating on, right?
You can,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can,
yeah.
you can, you can
Yeah.
do that in a normal car. Keeping yourself warm is one of the very few excuses that you're allowed to use. But I'm assuming the rules still apply with an electric car that you can't leave the engine running and get out of the car.
I would assume so, yeah. But I suppose electric cars are all automatic, so you'd have to stick it in park anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah. But
then
what I mean is
neutralizes the engine.
that would still apply if you left the keys in the ignition running and stepped out of the vehicle or whatever, unattended,
Yeah,
which is what
probably.
the majority of that rule is supposed to cover. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to get out of the car until it's stopped.
Gosh. Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of Audit in Britain, so it's one of the things that he pulls up people quite a lot for idling, or even sometimes they get out the car to put something in the boot and the ignition's still turned on, and he's like, "Yeah, it's a crime."
Well, yeah, well,
Because if the handbrake's not on properly or something, then you're not going to get back in the driving seat potentially to stop the car if it starts moving. So I can understand it for the sake of 2 seconds to either turn it off or whatever. Yeah, I can understand why it's there.
well, except that I mean, I'm not sure if it's ever been known for a vehicle to fall into gear, as it were, from neutral.
True, but I suppose if you're on a slope.
If it wasn't, to be fair, it would
Going
probably
with every scenario you can think of.
I'm doing it to Tobias, sorry,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But then it wouldn't matter if it was running or not if it was on a slope, because if it was in neutral, it's going to run away anyway.
That's
It would
true.
actually be safer for you to get out of the car and try and leave it running in first gear. At least it would stall and lock the gearbox then.
True.
I'm going to do a video saying 10 things I've changed my mind about
Same things to
idling
change your mind
cars.
about, yeah. But yeah, let me chuck this comment up because I think even the people in the chat will be a bit surprised by this one. I think that one fitted it in okay.
Can you give us the context of it?
Yeah, so this is in a group called Marshall and Millions Vigils and Activism, something along those lines. And basically, someone put promote. Sorry if you can't read the chat for a few minutes, I will change it back. But someone put a promotion for last week's National Animal Rights March in there, essentially alluding to what we talked about in regards to the fact that the two sites were more or less on top of each other in Birmingham, for example, and you could literally attend both. And this was someone's response to the idea of combining those oppressions and actually uniting against speciesism as opposed to just being against two dogs being killed, and this was someone's response to it. So I'll give everyone a minute or two to read it, and then I'll change it back because
We can't see it, mate. It's Andy. It's masked by the comments and the little squares of us.
Hang on, though. Let me change it.
Can you read it out loud?
Just read it.
Yeah, I can read it. So I'm not going to name the person, but it
Can
says,
you
"I'm
do
not
it in the
interested."
voice of Joaquin Phoenix?
No, I can't. I get paid in
Whatever
shares.
happens,
I'm
mate,
not
don't name the
interested. Someone
person.
super chats me, maybe. I'm not interested in vegan preaching. I am all for compassion in farming and agree animals should be respected, not ill treated, but we are omnivores. If you do the research into famine and food production, you realise just how dangerous these people are. I personally don't care. You're right, I can't read it. Because the box is in the way. 2 secs. Let me change the screen.
Okay.
Now I can't even see my buttons because it's white. Right. Let me go back to black first. Let me just change it to that a second while I
Well,
find my picture.
well, that'll do. That'll do as it is, won't it? Like that.
It puts too much off.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So now I can actually see the screen. Let me change the setup of how we are.
Right, everybody switch over to StreamYard, people.
Hello, Graham, by the way. Welcome.
Which is the one? I can never remember which is the one where we go the other way. Yes, I got it first time for once. All right, now let me change it back and see if we can read it then.
If you can get rid of all those requests, it'd help too, I suppose. But
Can we read it now? Because I can read it now, if not.
yeah, I can read it now. I mean, the first one obviously is an appeal to welfare, but I mean, there's no kind of grammar really. I mean, like you realise just how dangerous these people are, meaning vegans, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
Now that is for me. I mean, I don't know if for you, but for me, that's kind of like the worst comment on this, or at least one of them.
Yeah,
because-
that's literally. I mean, I didn't respond with the essay that Kev did. Fair play. I just literally said that you know what's really dangerous is the ignorance that you're showing, being seen as wisdom. That this comment to someone from the outside seems like they know what they're talking about, and literally everything they've said is wrong. Like it's almost like they've gone out of their way to get everything wrong.
And all I really commented on was the fact that she said that she was all for compassion in farming. So I just outlined some compassionate farming techniques,
Yeah,
and that was
I
it.
will change it now because I know no one can see the chat. Apologies.
Do you think that must be a reference, presumably, Kev, to compassion in world farming? I would think, don't you?
Yeah, I think it probably is. Yeah. Mhm.
Sure.
But you know, I mean, like the famine thing is that's really kind of underhand, given the amount of times that
Yeah,
vegans have talked about.
exactly that. That's. I mean, come on, it's literally the opposite, and you're sort of playing on people's emotional heartstrings or whatever. Everything about that is wrong. It's like essay worthy of a response. I might even make a video about it.
Well, there's already been an essay, so it'll have to be a video, won't it?
Yeah, because there is so much to sort of delve into in one comment from one person. But I think the other key thing about it is because it's in that group, which is obviously aimed at all these so-called animal lovers, that every single one of them are against the shooting of those 2 dogs. And of course, you know, I understand why, and every right to be. However, this is the animal lovers that people are trying to get to connect. This is the kind of people they're trying to get to go and sit on a dairy farm or somewhere and do some activism.
Yeah. Well, let me just say that in 1946, I think it was, the Vegan Society's main editorial of their magazine was about famine. So it's not as though the vegan movement has ignored it, and in fact, it's one of the main claims about veganism from a, if you like, from a not the other animals' point of view, but it's also we'd be able to feed everybody, you know, because and then I mean people say, well, it's a political thing, which is true. So I mean, there's probably enough food now to feed everyone now, but
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that I like to stress sometimes when I've heard other people say, well, you know, veganism is essentially the solution to world hunger, and it's like, well, sort of, but the problem is, and unless something changed within those countries or within those places too, politically, the problem now isn't a lack of food for the most part. It's the fact that whoever runs that country or whoever controls the supply doesn't want to spend the money to feed the people. And unless that changed, then having the abundance wouldn't necessarily mean that those people wouldn't still starve because it is political.
yeah, that's right. But but in terms of the vegan argument, of course, is that there'd be absolutely nothing to stop every human on the planet being fed. I mean, it might be the case that can be done right now, along with all the billions of other animals. Although that's the problem, the fact that we've
just
created
going
a
back to one of our previous shows talking about waste. I mean, I think it could be solved without people really making too much of a change to right now if it was just redirection and reorganized.
Yeah, well, there's often no political will. I mean, that's what you're saying. That's the problem, and a lot of it is the fact that if people weren't starving to death, the next thing they're going to want a share of the oil, and they're going to want a share of the other
Yeah,
resources of the
of
planet.
course, and that's exactly how a lot of these people are kept under control in some of these countries, which isn't going to change by there suddenly being an abundance of food somewhere, because
Mm.
the politics will remain the same.
There's an interesting conversation going on with Spider Buzz and Jennifer and Joe now, which is about respect. Now, I just want to read one bit out because I'm really interested in this bit. If I can, here we go. No, that was not the wrong one. When I say I respect vegans, I clearly don't get it back. So that's Spider Buzz saying that. Now, the point is, what I mean, I want what's being asked for here. I mean, like, are they saying every time I say that I respect the choices of vegans, I don't get it back? Because we wouldn't be able to do that, but we might be able to say, well, we've got some respect for another human being or something. It's just that it's kind of like almost like too much to ask, because it's very difficult for vegans to respect a non-vegan because of the rights violations that they're committing all the time.
Yeah, especially when you've got someone like Matthew who comes on to just literally provoke an emotional response from you by coming in with something idiotic or
And Matthew is this
up to
person that
date.
I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, that's Matthew Nesbitt. That must be his new account because he's got no followers on it. So that's I've got him blocked on absolutely every account. That's obviously why he's managed to get in on that one, I
Yeah,
Okay.
think.
and we as vegans or as a movement are not asking for your respect. The
No.
victims are.
But if you are looking to be respected by the or be enter a respectful conversation with vegans, then when you come onto someone's page and you start with a disrespectful comment, then the conversation's only going to go one way, isn't it? Really. So
Yeah, it's kind of this is a version of people, if they know that there's a vegan on the table, they might say sorry for what they're eating, and you go,
Yeah,
well, hang on a minute, don't apologize to me.
yeah,
And so it's not us that needs your respect.
exactly that. Yeah, I mean, literally saying what you're saying, Matthew. You claim to show vegans respect, but don't get any in return. Well, all of the animals that you use in your various ways, they're not doing anything wrong to you. Why aren't you respecting them? What's this got to do with us? If you're going to have this basic knowledge that I do this, so I expect this in return, why don't you respect them as much as they respect you? No cow is going out of their way to consume you or use you or exploit you or oppress you. So why are you doing exactly the same to them? If you care about respect and expect it mutually, why don't you extend it mutually?
yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Otherwise, respect to you doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, respect somebody full of disrespect. Anyway, going back to that
But
quote.
even with all that said, Matthew, we still would respect you and your rights enough to campaign for you if this was you in this situation.
Yeah, I was going to throw that in there. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. If obviously if your rights were being violated, then we would respect your right to not have them violated, if that
But
makes
that's a
sense.
kind of Reagan Russell thing, isn't it? I'm not quite sure if I've ever seen anybody kind of suggest that until I saw that, because she was holding a sign saying, if you were in in one of these trucks, I'd be fighting for you too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Matt, it's in the poem that I wrote to Matthew as well, and it's the absolute truth. If he was
Mm.
being oppressed somewhere, he would be a victim, and like his rights would matter just as much as the others that we're
Yeah, well,
talking
there is
about.
that bit, isn't there, Andy? There is that bit in the Late Late Show where Reagan says, if everybody else in the audience was having a go at you and violating your rights, I'd be protecting you. Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah, and he says I wouldn't eat you,
Yeah.
even if everyone else wanted to. I wouldn't eat you. I wouldn't agree with that, and that's
Yeah.
and that's the same. regardless of his personality, that makes no difference to the fact that his rights matter. How he chooses to conduct himself is disappointing, but it makes no difference to the fact that I will respect his existence.
Yeah. Okay. So Matthew's now said that to be not vegan is their choice. Respect it. Well, you see, we can't do that.
No.
I mean, you're just asking. I mean, literally there. I mean, like you're asking for literally too much there. I mean, we cannot do that. I mean, how could we?
No, and I mean, it would be no different than anyone trying to justify their oppression against anyone else by saying, well, this is my choice, just accept it. No,
Yeah,
it's wrong.
exactly.
And we oppose wrong.
If you
And
were a
so would
violent
you.
pimp and you said, respect my choice, we couldn't.
Yeah. If someone broke into your house, Matthew, and started taking your belongings and assaulting your family members, and when you said, oh, I don't like this isn't acceptable, they said, well, just respect my choice. That's what you're asking. You can't do that. The injustice that you're causing is what we can't respect.
Yeah, exactly. You're asking us to respect something that causes victims.
Yeah, you're asking
Victims,
us to respect something that we're fundamentally opposed.
victims that you deem to be lesser than your sensory pleasure that you get from it, I suppose. And we view that the same way as we view other people that cause similar actions, that cause a victim that they deem to be lesser than their choice.
Graham's sending us to school here. What did Tom Reagan say in his 1989 case about views of oppressors? I don't want to butcher it, which I suppose is that's like a
Not getting funny.
that's an in-joke, isn't it?
What I eat in my house is not your business. Well, you're not wrong, but who you eat in your house is somebody's business, isn't it? Potentially the life that's been taken.
Yeah, and it's
That's
not.
the problem.
I'm guessing Joseph Thompson's probably about 13. Stop oil. Okay.
Stop oil.
And they also put something in about solar panels as well and religion. So
Oh. Yeah, I'm not. As always, I'm terrible at keeping up with the chat.
yeah, yeah. They came in. It was like I've got solar panels. I almost kind of sent them a high five emoji, but yeah,
What
That's
religious
worthy of
solar
that
panels?
thing. That's
religious,
worthy of
religious.
that
Yeah,
CapCut template with Post Malone.
yeah. Religious
Kev, what's
solar
up with solar
panels.
panels?
They absorb the power of the Lord.
And maybe they always just face towards the sun, like
Well, it depends. It depends on which. It
Perhaps we
depends on
better
which.
not get there. Yeah. Okay.
It depends on which religion they're absorbing as well, to be fair, doesn't it? And if you're going to have religious solar panels, you would have a religious solar panel that, was from a religion with more than one deity, wouldn't you? Because then you'd be able to absorb more of their power, technically, I suppose. But yeah.
And now I've gone and forgot that the second part of that quote now, Andy.
What? Sorry, I missed what was said.
No, the one that we were looking at, and you were.
Oh, the comment.
Yes.
Hang on, let me pull it up on my computer. They should have just done that in the first place. That would have been the more sensible thing. Because I know Kev liked it, so I should be able to find it very quickly. I'll say, and then can't. Did they delete the post, Kev?
I don't know. I've not been on.
I think they did. The entire, the whole thing's no longer there. Great. Or maybe I've been kicked from the group actually. So no, I can't without bringing it back up on here. Hang on.
You're just going to have to learn how to articulate your position without being terribly, terribly, terribly rude. You two.
I was far more polite than I could have been, honestly.
Yeah, well, we could all say that for everything we do, isn't it?
I personally don't care if people are vegan or vegetarian or meat eaters, but stop preaching. It should always be personal choice.
No, it says stop preaching this. So what means the vegan bit? Is it?
This, yeah. It should always be personal choice, freely made and not force-fed. It's a middle-class ideology that does nothing whatsoever to combat famine, which is far more important than dishing up artificial vegetarian meat that resembles cardboard.
Yeah, well, Spider-Man could have written that.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
So,
I agree with one part of that. People should start preaching about vegetarianism
Yeah,
because it's just hypocrisy, isn't it?
great understanding of them though.
it's an interesting word, isn't it? Preaching. It's got a kind of pejorative, hasn't it, to it? Because I mean, I don't feel that I preach, but people have accused me of it. But I never feel as though, I mean, I actually don't like that idea at all. I mean, oh, you don't go, oh, you go, we're going to go out and do some education. You don't go, we're going to go out and do some preaching. It just
Oh
doesn't.
yeah, because it's basically got religious intent. Like I don't think you can preach unless there's some sort of aspect of religion. Like the definition for preach all has religion mentioned.
Yeah, and also another part of the preach bit is it tends to be like a one-way thing. It's like giving a lecture, isn't it? Whereas, of course, the education thing that we do is not like that because it's interactive.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's two-way. Yeah.
I think what they're referring to in this case is somebody standing there with a megaphone poking your chest, telling you you're a bad person for X, Y, and Z.
I mean, I would do that without the megaphone.
Well,
Yeah, but you're okay. We like you, so it's okay for you.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, I think that's a fair point. Usually, people stand with megaphones when they're addressing a rally, but I suppose you're thinking of times when people have, say, done like an occupation or something.
It's the
I'm saying
radicalism in the
the
movement. That's
visual,
what it is, Roger.
the visual that pops up in my head, if I'm hearing somebody talking about, let's say, preachy vegans, I think they're thinking about like the what are those guys that just go around throwing orange powder all over the place with megaphones?
Just stop oil, and then
that's just
Yeah,
obviously.
stuff Will
that
who
that
I like.
kind of that's the kind of region of activism that I'm talking about. Like
Well,
I'm
you've
good, you're
also got
bad
to
type
think.
thing.
You've also got to think about the words, right? So people use words that are derogatory or distant, so that they don't actually have to take things at face level. And preach does that straight away.
Yeah.
Preach takes something from being helpful or beneficial or any of those things to something that you don't want automatically with one word. And I think that's the main reason that it's used, because it really isn't like, as Roger said, preachers for the most part, if you see like someone preaching Christianity in the street and you go and want to have a conversation with them, they don't want to have a conversation with you. They don't want
So
to discuss anything,
I think what
because their
frustrates people with
position is
this,
not, it's not under, they're cemented in it, aren't they? Whereas we ours is all two-way.
I think the issue with this though, Andy, it's the more holier than thou thing where I'm a better person than you because I do X, Y, and Z. That's the frustrating bit. That's the antagonizing bit, as opposed to just educating someone. Say, listen, buddy, I'm not here to say I'm a better person than you.
Well, yeah,
There's
no, I
there,
mean,
there's just another
I
way in which.
personally would disagree with that first and foremost, and say that the reason that I'm vegan is because I don't consider
No,
myself better than
I
anyone
think I
anywhere.
think I
That
think Lou's
extends
point
from
there. That
humans to all species. So, like, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that point about coming over holier than thou is stronger than the just oil type thing, because I do think it's preachy, that kind of because sometimes you'll get vegans talking either on the street or on the internet, and you would never know that there was never a time when they were not vegan. I mean, I
Mhm.
mean, I mean, the best kind of outreach seems to be when you kind of go, well, yeah, but I mean, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever, I was just like that. I used to say that I was a troll. I used to work in Burger King or whatever that the case is, right? And so then you're immediately stepping off any pedestal that they want to point you
Mhm.
on, you know. But I'm
Yeah,
not
you
quite.
disarm them.
Yeah, but you gave the example of just stop oil. Be interested in how you see that as preaching.
No, no. So I'm saying, for example, with the activists, the ones that will go in, it was more related to, for example, the ones that go into Burger King and just start throwing blood all over the place with megaphones.
Okay, well, they fill the megaphones up with blood and throw them around.
So it's like so. it's the more aggressive side of things I think gets on people's nerves in that kind of. It's what tarnishes.
Yeah,
But
no,
saying that,
I would absolutely agree with that, and we've had discussions before about some of those kind of protests and that sort of activism. But I would have thought that that was what they consider us to be, like controversial or extreme or radical rather than preachy, because preachy is by sort of definition speaking and trying to influence people, whereas they see that as just like near terrorism, aggressive,
mm,
destructive, kind of like not preachy. It's the extreme that we get accused of, as though covering a statue with some flipping orange powder is anyway in the same equation of slitting the throats of an animal, but that's kind of how it's projected normally, as opposed to preachy. I can understand it more if you were talking about, say, someone that was stood in the middle of the street talking quite loud, per se, and sort of invoking with people. I can understand that more because that would kind of meet the definition.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and
mm.
do you not also think that sometimes this is just a deflection so that people don't actually have to face what they're actually feeling?
Yeah, of course.
They
Yeah, of
deflect
course.
that
In
feeling
the
of
same
guilt
way,
onto
a
you
lot
because
of
you've made
times,
them feel that guilt.
yeah,
Yeah,
in the
I think
same way,
that,
let's
Yeah,
say,
we had this conversation earlier with Roger. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I think
that's
there's a lot of
exactly
that.
it.
Yeah.
That word preach straight away gives anyone who's listening in the vicinity a completely different idea of what's going on. It's no longer a conversation, it's someone being spoken to. And that's everyone else like, "Ugh, I don't want to get involved then. I'm
Yeah,
not
but you can
interested."
see Lou's point, though, Andy, in the sense that some vegans do have that kind of
Absolutely, they
condescending.
do. Yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah. So,
it's like the
that's a
Sorry.
mistake, you know.
it's like the
Have you
zeal of
noticed
the
that?
freshly converted.
It's,
Like
I
people
suppose
try and be.
it's just it plays into that whole what we were still talking about. But have you noticed that those are always the examples that everyone remembers? The one protest video they've seen is when blood was thrown all over the shop,
Mhm.
or the one time when someone was loud, and that's the only time they remember. Or out of all the other activists they've encountered, they're not memorable. But I
Yeah,
suppose it
that's
all
the
depends.
dilemma of direct action. That is,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I think
It,
you've
it, it's a
you've got
fine line between educating someone and then antagonizing them to the point where they feel that it goes back to the whole look. I'm a better person than you. If you can get the message across without somebody feeling like I'm a bad person because I'm not doing what you're doing, it goes back to ego and how
Yeah, well, I agree with that, and one technique for that is for you to see the situation sociologically. I mean,
Mhm.
people are not bad people; they're just thoroughly socialized.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
obviously, there are some people who are thoroughly socialized, and also bad people because they kind of know what they're doing. You know, a vivisector knows what they're doing. But even them, they are thoroughly socialized by the scientific community as well. So there's a lot of kind of peer pressure on people, and some people are not good at resisting it, and also resisting it might mean losing your job or losing your status and this kind of stuff. And so it's not all that clear cut, but I agree with your principal point, definitely. Here's a comment, Matty Boy 1125, and the language here is really interesting. It's a shame people can't respect. So that word's there again. It's a shame people can't respect others and just let them eat what they want. Now that is close to this thing about you're forcing me, which obviously is an interesting construction. And vegans get that all the time. Why are you forcing your lifestyle or you're forcing your politics or forcing whatever on us? And of course, it can't be done. I mean, I'm sure if it could be done, a lot of vegans would do it. But yeah, so it's a shame people can't respect others and just let them eat what they want. But we're asking questions about what people eat, including ourselves, by the way, like things like crop dust and stuff. So we're asking moral questions about food, but also relations, vivisection, the environment, all kinds of stuff. I mean, that's what the vegan thing is: asking questions and challenging, harms and stuff like that. Am I alone on the riff here or what?
no, no. But yeah, I mean, it is funny that they can understand that it is about respect, but not extend any. 'Cause, I mean, it is about respect, but not respecting your choices to oppress others. You respecting the existence of others so that you no
Yeah,
longer choose
you
to
see,
oppress them.
that's a strong point. I mean, like, how can someone who is disrespectful demand respect?
Exactly.
But that's really what's happening, isn't it?
Sometimes I take it though with a pinch of forgive them for they know not what they do.
Oh, you
Do
mean
you-
Life of Brian?
Um, kind of, yeah. I mean, a lot of the times, look, at the end of the day, I can understand this has been somebody's norm since the day they were born, and they haven't necessarily had the exposure, or they've been
Yeah, that's what
conditioned to
that's what
believe
I
that that
was
is,
saying about socialization. You see,
yeah.
that is their world.
Like, can you blame them when that's it, that is their norm, that is their world? This is the thing. So you're coming into them with an alien idea to them.
True. However, if you're going to come in and drop the I understand what respect means. I'm going to demand respect and the idea that you respect my choices, and then it's made aware to you that you're not respecting the choices of those who are being oppressed in order for you to have that choice. You'd think there'd be some sort of connection there on the basis of I understand what respect means, at the very least.
And that is where
Yeah,
the
but
disconnect stops, isn't it? It's the species'
this is
point
it
of view. People
because they're
see
seeing it
animals
as
as
an
being things and not some bodies. So therefore, things are there to be used, and that's where most people draw the line, isn't it? Because they're conditioned to see animals as objects. They've been objectified um, and kind of devalued to the point where we use them in every single aspect of daily life,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
even
it's
down to the
cultural
fact that
speciesism that we're dealing with, I'm afraid, which is our biggest opponent.
yeah, exactly that. It's the culture, I suppose, isn't it, of animal use? That's what we're fighting against almost. It's like Roger was saying, it's the sociology of it. Um, so it
Yeah,
people don't.
it's cultural speciesism, Kev. There's no we don't need to go anywhere else. We don't really need even psychology. We just need to understand that cultural speciesism
There you
is the
go. That's just demonstrated it.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that. Stud seems to have figured out the meaning of life. Stud, what are we here for?
To apparently make people that eat meat feel guilty.
Well, most humans these days, they're born so that they can work a job that they absolutely hate to pay taxes to a government that they know are corrupt so that they can say fuck all about it until the day that they die.
Yeah.
Basically, if that's how you want to look at things.
150 years ago, humans were born into the slave trade to become slaves. Didn't mean it get right.
No, now they've just legalized slavery, basically, and everyone's going along with it. But
Yep.
the animal slavery is not the same as ours. It's very, very different. I mean, people don't like their lives for the reason, but you can still go home, you can change your job, you can quit, you can take a holiday, you can do any of these things. You've got choice. They don't have it. You take it away from them. So if you want to respect choices, give them one. The choice to survive, the choice to exist.
I don't feel sorry for eating. No, we're not asking you to do that. I mean, first of all, we're asking you to think about it morally. But it's also wider than that. It's not just about meat. Really, from the vegan point of view, we want people to think about justice. From a perfect kind of vegan world, we would kind of get up and we would go, okay, I want to do X, but is X a just thing to do? And so you'd be questioning in yourself all the time. It's very
Stud,
anarchic in that sense, but it's a great way of doing it. You say, well, who am I going to harm by doing what I want to do? And then if you come to the conclusion that you're going to harm someone else, then you don't do it.
can I reply to Stud here for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
Right, so Stud, you're saying that they get looked after. So imagine visualizing it like this, right? So they're a commodity. to their master, so to speak. Let's say, for example, you've got street workers. I'm going to try and use delicate language here because I don't want to get this TikTok shut down. But let's say, for example, you're a female street worker, right? And you have the person who, in quotes, employs you, so to speak, the PIMP, right? Now, that person looks after you. That person takes care of you. You're the person that brings that person the bread. It's their duty to take care of you because it is what it is. However, the moment that your looks fade, you can no longer produce. You're no longer the golden goose, so to speak. What do you think happens? You still going to take care? Doesn't work like that, man.
I mean, I would go one step further than that and say that even if all of their needs were met, they are a commodity that is only being used for somebody else's benefit. So even if all of their needs were met, even if they were given a comfortable life with no death at the end, their young weren't taken away, no one dies, which I know is not reality, but even if that was the reality, that would still be wrong because we are using them for something that we absolutely don't need.
Stud
So
wants to come in. Can we bring Stud in?
just to add in there, so we had a picnic today at a local forest, and we had like loads. So the kids like finished their picnic off for the tea, and we made them Quorn vegan ham and Cathedral City vegan cheese stutties, which is like a thick bread cake. And we've got a cat, and he was just apparently on the bench devouring the one little piece of like sandwich that was left that we hadn't put in the bin yet. So yeah, you know if vegan food's good with an obligate carnivore is on the bench eating it.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier on, weren't we, Lou? About how often people will. In fact, you've got somebody who you went to have a plant-based burger with, and they thought it was the best they've
Yes,
had. Yeah.
yes, and he no longer eats meat. He probably still eats fish, but it's a step.
Is that angler guy?
Yes, him, Robbie. He doesn't eat meat
Yeah,
anymore. Would you believe?
That's good.
it's a good step in the right direction, I suppose.
It's interesting, though, from our point of view, as people who have got a philosophy that we want to propound. You've got a lot of people who, even though, I mean, we've had the big sausage expert in Britain. We've had situations where
Can we still call him that though?
I'm sorry, but when Roger said the big sausage expert, it really sounded
Yeah,
like
that could be
something slightly
misconstrued.
different.
Someone will clip that, make a rap remix out of it. But yeah, I mean, technically, I think he's lost that accolade anyway, hasn't he? If you're
Yeah,
an
but
expert,
the point I'm making is the fact that time and time again in these trials where people from the industry themselves can't tell the difference anymore,
yeah,
and yet for some reason, again, and this is cultural speciesism, people are reluctant, and they will still say, like that woman said, they taste like cardboard, which is what that sausage expert guy said, right? And so they're obviously kind of lying, but kind of why? Because nothing about the product now is a problem to them, to the extent that they actually think this product is better than the one that they wouldn't normally say was the best. And so everything has gone for them except for the speciesism part of it, which for some reason still overrides all the rational stuff about the fact, well, I've just had a plant-based sausage and it was better than the one that I'm used to. But it's
Yeah,
almost as though that doesn't count then.
yeah. I mean, I've got a couple of friends who prefer the the plant-based sausage roll from Greg's over the actual sausage roll from Greg's. Well, obviously the pig flesh sausage roll from Greg's. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Guys, would you be up? Would you be up for a round table debate with Stud by any chance? He really wants to join the conversation. I'm just curious if you'd be up for that.
he hasn't got enough followers to join. I can't invite him.
judging by what he's been put in the chat, I don't know how constructive the conversation will be.
How many has he got? Let's have a look. Ah, he won't be able to.
So you're saying a dog shouldn't meet who? Oh, hello, Rooch. How you doing?
That's a grumpy cat.
You call it pig flesh? Well, yeah, if it is pig flesh, then of course we call it pig flesh.
Yeah, it is literally the flesh of a dead pig.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
if you,
what would you call it if someone come and chopped a hunk of chest flesh off you? Would you
well,
call
it's
that
I suppose
flesh? Then yeah.
let's not cross that human barrier because obviously cultural speciesism. But would you call dog flesh dog meat and cat flesh cat meat? So if you found a cat knocked over and ripped to bits on the road, you wouldn't automatically look and go, look at that cat's meat showing. Although that's exactly what it is according to the euphemism.
Yeah, and I suppose you could extend that to vets. You take a cat that's been hit by a car into the vets, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of meat hanging out."
Yeah,
No,
loads.
that would never be the expression used. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You're right. You're right.
Well, you shouldn't take them to the vets. You should take them to McDonald's.
Just take them to the slaughterhouse. It's humane there. Obviously cheaper. Well, you can keep arguing with me, but which one out of us two do you think knows evolution or biology better? Because it's not you, and dogs are not carnivores. No matter how many times you put it in caps or repeat it, they're omnivores. Like this is fact. In the same way that humans are animals, fact. This is not up for debate. If you want to challenge it, then you need to challenge the scientific consensus. And I don't think you could spell those words personally. So I don't think you've got an argument.
Are there people that don't know that humans are animals?
Yeah, lots, and more than you think.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll
I learned that
argue
in
with
like
you
year
until you're
3
blue
in
in the
school.
face that humans
Well,
are
we
not
spoke about
animals.
this earlier as well, didn't we, Lou?
To the point
Yeah.
where Andy had a comment removed from TikTok for avoiding community guidelines because he said that he called a human an animal. He
Yeah,
just literally put "you are an animal" and it
yeah,
got
and
removed
I was
from community
responding to
guidelines.
someone that literally wrote the comment, "All animals are here for us to use." So I responded, "You're an animal," and it got removed.
Yeah, but the thing is, this is where culture comes back into it. Sorry to put my sociology hat on again, but
No, but you are right because that it could be deemed as derogatory. Look at a newspaper
yeah, if
headline
you,
or whatever.
yeah, that's right. You know, these animals,
Yeah,
football
yeah,
hooligans.
absolutely.
Yeah,
The football hooligans acted like animals.
yeah.
Yeah.
So can I very quickly just jump on Matthew Nesbitt's comment to Laura?
I'm glad
Hello,
you added
Laura, by
that
the way.
comment.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
Um,
Laura.
Oh, happy birthday. I didn't even notice she was in here, Laura. Sorry. Happy birthday. I did say
so
happy
obviously
birthday.
he's saying that
21 again.
feeding a dog a plant-based diet is mistreating a dog. Technically, all you have is an obligation to fulfill that dog's nutritional
Well, to be
needs, which
honest,
you
Kev,
can do
I
with a
wouldn't even go
plant-based
that far. They have a
meal.
good life, don't they? They have a good life. Since when did you give a shit about the rights of an animal? Because you don't care about animal abuse or animal cruelty. Even if we use those words, you don't give a fuck about them. You don't care.
Exactly. And I
So
mean,
why would you care about our dogs?
Don't do
I,
that, Andy. My pacemaker went there.
Sorry.
no one's debating that humans aren't omnivores, but humans can thrive on a plant-based diet as long as it's well planned. Dogs are omnivores. Dogs can thrive on a plant-based diet as long as it's well planned. So as long as and Christ, cats can now because you just add taurine in that's man-made. They put man-made taurine in tinned cat food because when you bake tinned cat food, the taurine cooks out. So you're just doing the same thing to what they do to cat food made from animal flesh. And I'm not being funny if you're saying that it's more natural or blah, blah, blah. When was the last time you seen a pack of cats take down a cow? You know what I mean? Or a goat or any of these other things that are in cat food because
Yeah,
they're only
I
there
mean,
because of
I've
byproduct.
said this loads of times. You go to like a country like Greece or Turkey or somewhere like that, and they've got packs and packs and packs of dogs that roam the streets. You know why they roam the streets rather than the countryside? Because they eat rubbish from bins and what
Yeah,
people
exactly.
put out for them. They don't hunt. They could if what
Yeah.
you were, but they don't because they're essentially now domesticated to the point where that's their diet. If they were carnivores, they'd have that instinct. Some dogs have got prey drive, but there's no real instinct to consume afterwards. It's more about the thrill of the chase.
Yeah, and I'm not being funny, but a lot of dogs that have got prey drive, that's from being bred as
Yeah,
a
absolutely to
retriever
have
or a
that.
hunt
Yeah,
dog.
for a working purpose, exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why they don't want to eat it because the they're not trained to consume a dead body. They're trained to retrieve it or kill the animal in the first place. But then
Yeah,
obviously
I
the
mean, to the
human
point
wants to
where
consume the
foxhounds, for
flesh.
example, when they're given like a carcass of a sheep or a pig to sort of train them up, the dogs that aren't interested, they're gone.
Yeah.
We've got somebody asking to come in, I think, but I don't know whether we want to do that or not.
It's up to you guys. I don't mind. I'll go with democracy as always.
I don't mind. Yeah.
Aye.
Which way did democracy go?
It said a yes. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Hello.
Is there
Speak
any-
now or forever hold your peas.
Well, they're talkative.
Is there anybody out there? Dogs are
Hello.
carnivores and
You
dogs.
were quite vocal in the chat. All foxhounds were killed 1,000 when they banned fox hunting. What alternative reality are you living in, and how can I get there? I mean, that sentence, all foxhound were killed 1,000 when they banned fox hunting.
What
Banned
band?
on
I've
the
never
run.
heard the band fox
Is
hunting.
it banned though? Is it really banned?
No, it's not. It's not really. It's kind of modified, really.
Yeah, it's just been relabeled.
It's just riddled with loopholes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, now it's just trail hunting, isn't it? And accidentally.
Yeah.
yeah, but I
How
mean, the thing
convenient.
is, all foxhounds were killed is just an totally inaccurate statement because
Yeah, I mean, literally they're out right now. They're
I mean,
still being bred right now.
there's still packs charging around the countryside right
Yeah,
now.
there'll be literally packs out tomorrow. There's probably been packs out today.
Yeah. Just can I just say thank you to Good Stream for joining the live? That was really constructive.
And thank you. Yeah, I hope you learned a lot. We did.
I learned a lot.
Well,
Yeah,
fair play.
you're not wrong. Fox hunting
They weren't
has been
nasty to us
banned,
anyway.
but that's the only part of that is correct. But by banned is kind of in the same way that video piracy was banned, but it's still
Hello,
happening.
Irish Animal Rescue.
Yes.
I mean, the
Guys, can we add
downloading of music from the internet is technically illegal, but it happens, right? Like every day, every
Andy?
minute. Yeah.
I've promised Tara that I'm going to try and help her promote her cause. Is there any chance you could just let her on for like a minute just to
Yeah, of
spread her
course,
message?
of course, yeah, of course.
She's got this thing going on with the bulls.
With the
Tara,
bullets. Yeah. I did say.
No, wait a minute. I'll start my stopwatch. Hang on.
Yeah, only for 1 minute.
I've sent an invite.
I love those. I love those ways that we talk to each other. Kind of. I'll be just 1 sec, and it'll just take me a minute.
I was being polite. This isn't my stream. Hi, Tara.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
I just actually saw an awful thing. I was made aware of it a few days ago as well. That Irish farms are going to be culling 200,000 cows. Has anyone else seen that?
No.
Yeah, I think I saw something, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I must look.
Can you fill
I
in
don't
the
know.
details?
I don't know the details. I'm
Graham's
going
seen
to have
it.
to research it. Oh, have you, Graham?
Do you know the details, Graham? Because you could come on and tell us.
Yeah, jump on, Graham. Is it just for those of us who don't?
Yeah.
Right. Meet climate targets.
Oh, I did see that article actually. I only saw like the headline that was being shared about. I didn't actually read the.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense this because it would be a question of not. Yeah, I'm not quite sure whether the culling thing is just.
Is it just rubbish? Because I mean, surely the first thing, if you're going to cull potentially 200,000 cows, then the first thing you got to do is stop breeding.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're not going to live that long, so you don't need to cull the ones currently living.
No, it would be a case of we can no longer continue to breed them at the rate that we are.
Sounds to me like potentially this is just like a sensationalist headline to me.
Well,
Totally.
generally, I find that with every sensationalist article that's about, there's something lurking in the background in tiny print. I remember meeting a laboratory scientist in France, and we shared. I was hitching, and we shared a journey of about 6 hours together in the kind of late 90s. And it's something he said to me was, always look for the small print when there's a sensationalist type article out. So
Yeah, no,
anyway,
I
something
would
to
I
keep
would
an
totally
eye on.
agree with that. Sometimes it's not even in the small print. Sometimes it's just what is
Yeah,
this story been printed for to stop me thinking about something else or reading about something
e-
else. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Anyway, in the meantime, there's a possibility of 7 bullocks being surrendered in Ireland, and we're looking for vegan homesteaders, and independent vegan rescues that can help by maybe taking 1 or 2, or saving all 7 or some of them, if we get them surrendered. So if everybody could maybe go on my Lou, you shared it somewhere. Where did you share it?
So I shared it with my mum, who's got the
Mhm.
sanctuary down in Tipperary. She knows
Okay.
quite a few people there. She's just worried that
Right.
people will say yeah, no worries, and then
Yeah. Uh,
that's the concern.
well, they'll obviously have to be people that can
Of
cope
course.
with their financial needs, and their grazing needs, and their emotional, needs by being a part of a herd. They can't just obviously be kind of sent off in pairs or whatever. It's not
Hmm.
emotionally correct
Of
for them.
course.
What's their situation? How come? Why are they being surrendered? Or
Well, the it's due to terminal illness.
oh, are they coming from sanctuary already?
No,
Right.
no,
Okay.
they're actually there's 2 choices, and the decision is yet to be made as to whether they're going to be sold to be killed,
Right.
or
I'm with
whether
you.
they're going to be surrendered. And I happen to have done this person a big favor by finding his dogs a home, which I thought was a neon impossible 2 days ago. But in actual fact, they're moving into their new home tomorrow.
Tara, my mum said she's going to reach out to you. I spoke to her earlier.
Good.
She said she's
Okay.
going to add you on Facebook. Um,
Cool.
I won't say her name on here, but
That's
she'll
okay.
tell you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So,
Great.
one
sadly, I
sanctuary.
don't have any contacts really anymore. But if I did, they would all be in England anyway.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
England sanctuaries have taken other animals
Well,
from Ireland.
this is why I was leading to. I
Yeah.
don't know when it comes
No.
to the Irish system very well. I mean, I'm assuming it's the same in terms of like the tags and the paperwork and everything else as what it is here.
It is, and
Okay.
like Hillside in Norfolk took a lot of animals from Ireland about 3-4 years ago, and I believe that they're just absolutely chock a block
Yeah,
now.
they took 11. I think there was 11 dairy cows from the guy in Cornwall that turned into an oat milk farm as well. So, yeah,
Yeah, they took. I was a part of what was it, 240 going over
yeah.
of dairy cows.
Tara, are
But
you in a position to make a post on TikTok about it that we can all share? Like,
yeah, I
not.
was going to say, if to be fair, it might be better off if it's got the information and if it's like a Facebook one, so it's text there. It's easier to share. Because the problem
Yeah,
with TikTok is you can't click on anything, you can't click on links, you can't read
It's
text properly.
frustrating.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and you can't really share very
Well,
much. You can
that's it. I
share.
mean, at least if it was on Facebook, straight away I can share that on my Facebook, which automatically shares to Instagram. Whereas, like,
Mhm.
TikTok, it would make no difference, I don't think.
Well, it's on Sophia's page. It's on what is that Vegan Ireland page?
Sentient
Um,
Rights Island, or
is it on Sentient Rights as well?
I'm not sure. If wherever I find it, I'll share it from there.
Okay, it's on my page as well.
Well, one British sanctuary that certainly would have the money would be the Surge Sanctuary, but
I was going to suggest that. What you mean, Ed
hmm,
Sanctuary? Yeah.
yeah, but
okay.
whether they've got the land, I don't know. But even if even if they've got spare fields, as it were, they could quickly put together shelter.
All right. Well, look, I've contacted a Scottish sanctuary today. I haven't heard word back, and I'll try the Surge Sanctuary as well. Thank you.
Yeah, you've also got the retreat in Kent, although I think they're chocker too, to be honest.
Retreat.
Tara,
Yeah, the retreat,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
I'm sorry for the use of this word in particular, but is there a deadline on it?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with
Well,
saying line, Lou.
Sorry?
Nothing wrong with saying
oh,
line.
well, I'm not sure. I'm hoping we couldn't get an answer today, as the person really wasn't feeling well,
Okay.
so there may and wasn't able to speak. So we're hoping he's going to be feeling better soon, and we can get an answer on that. You know.
Tara, if you can link out to me, reach out to me in a private message on TikTok. Let us know what your information is on Facebook. I'll link you in with someone in the northeast of England who,
Okay.
someone called Animalia, who's absolutely fantastic with this sort of thing.
My man.
So
Animalia. Are
yeah,
they in Galway as well? German.
yeah, I think it's her kind of tag, if you will. It's a play on the Latin word for animal.
Okie doke. All right.
Which is, funnily enough, our taxonomic clade that we all belong to, which is why we're animals.
Yeah,
Animalia, yeah.
but yeah, reach out to us on a private message on TikTok, and I'll add you on Facebook, and I'll link you in because she's like a vegan Terminator when it comes to this sort of stuff. She's just a machine that doesn't stop. So she might if she doesn't know someone in our network, she might be able to link her in with other organisations that might be able to help more.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is
I like
T still in
people
here?
like
She
that.
might know as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Who? Who? Who was the
Terminator.
one?
There's a terrible movement issue here, isn't there?
No, she's
Which
not.
is, I mean, we talk what we talk about 8 individuals and
7.
seven, yeah, and of course many more than that. Multiple times of that are being slaughtered per second.
Hmm.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
horrible. It's horrendous.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
said earlier, it's hard. It's always more difficult as well when it comes to the males. I've known it with boars, with pigs, like because the requirements are different too. You can't always integrate them as part of a group and all that kind of stuff. They always seem to be the hardest to place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It's
that was my
awful.
mum's concern with the whole because she's got, like I said, she's got a sanctuary in Ireland, right? She's got a lot of land. However, on that, she's got 5 goats, she's got 2 random donkeys or ponies, and chickens, ducks. Everything's just roaming around all over the place.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
Well, the thing is, though, it's not even necessarily about space, okay? It's because, like, let's just say you agree to take two of those bullocks, and within 6 weeks of you taking them, you need the vet out twice. Like, it doesn't matter whether you've got
That's not the
50 acres of
concern.
space, you've not got the
That's not the
funds.
concern. That's
No,
not
no,
the concern, mate.
I'm just
It's
potentially talking about, it's not even just about
oh,
space. It's about funds too. It's about, if you've got 5 volunteers and then there's a car crash and 2 of them can't come in anymore, can you still cope?
mm,
Like, there's so many different factors that you have to play in to be responsible. It's not as simple. I mean, I think sometimes people just think you can just take an animal to the sanctuary and they'll just have space. Like, why wouldn't they? They don't
Yeah.
realise,
Well, that's where, where the person or the people that are placing those animals in the care of other people
yeah.
make sure that, you know, they kind of have all bases covered and have a really good idea of what can possibly happen,
Yeah.
you
I don't
know.
know if you've been the victim of this yourself, Tara, but I've seen it quite a few times where activists during, say, the spring will go and liberate, I don't know, a dozen or so lambs and just randomly turn up somewhere and then be surprised when they're like, well, you haven't told us anything. And it's almost like the sanctuary at fault for not having this space and this money. And, like, I just think sometimes, even though the intentions are obviously good, yeah, there's no thought that goes into it at all. I mean, that should be the biggest thing, is finding a secure place and maybe even a backup placement before you do
Yeah,
anything at all.
before that kind
Yeah,
of
I mean, I don't know
activity.
if it's the same over there, but we have something here. It's RBU, rescue backup. That should be something you have in place before you do
Oh,
anything at all.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, rescue
No,
backups
these are
always
young
have.
as well, aren't they, Tara?
Yes, I'm not sure exactly the age yet.
But they're not fully grown yet.
No, no.
Are they
Who?
are they kept together currently, or are they
Yeah,
separated? Yeah.
they're kept together. So, you know, obviously younger ones will be more able to adapt into
Yeah,
new
well, that's what I was thinking. If
environments.
they're young enough and they're all ready together, that's a real positive from their point of view.
Yeah, yeah. So fingers crossed we get some form of positivity. There is one sanctuary that has reached out and will take one
Ah,
to join their others.
Yeah.
so
So
um,
if we can get one that will have a good life, then that's a positive. And
just a
hopefully,
little red flag for anybody. If anybody's, sorry to interrupt you there, but this one was somewhat important that some people may miss. We was with you earlier when Roger was literally standing next to me when you mentioned it the first time, and somebody said like, "What breed is it?" The moment anyone
I
asks you that,
know, I
Yeah,
know,
red
that was
flag.
Jim. Yeah,
I know, I know.
Jim the cow harmer.
It's like I tried to find this farmer's two very, very large dogs, somewhere to live. And people keep asking for photos. And I honestly felt like going, well, you know, the Caucasian Shepherd's got a hair lip, her eyebrows are quite high,
Yeah,
and, you know, she's got her nose kind of twists to the left. Would you still want them? You know, it's like,
that would be as cringeworthy as if someone was adopting a child and said, "Ooh, before I make a decision, can you send us some photos of them, please?"
yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
ask us what they're like, ask us what their temperament is,
Yeah,
ask me
what
what
time
their
do they go to bed?
personality is. Yeah, I'll help,
Ask
and we'll help.
ask what their baggage is. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
like
Yeah,
I
ask the questions that would help us understand if you would be a suitable guardian for this animal. Not
yeah,
is
absolutely.
that animal pretty enough to come to my home?
Yeah, it's like when I put up posts about dogs that are looking for homes and stuff. It goes so against the grain, putting up these beautiful photos of them and nobody kind of responding. It feels like exploiting them. Um, you know, as well as things like, you know, adoption fees, which I've done away with. I don't do adoption fees anymore because I just can't personally cope with the fact that there's a transaction, you know. Not that I haven't bought animals in the past. I have. I bought a whole yard of
Do
backyard
you know?
breeders.
I totally understand what you're saying. I've had this conversation with people in the past, but what would
Yeah,
it not just be better to rename it to an adoption donation as
Donation.
opposed to fee, and then it's it's voluntary. This is it. This is the thing. So just for example, it's €50. It's up to you if you pay it, but I mean, obviously, we'd massively appreciate it if you did, and at least then there's an
yeah,
option. Whereas you
yeah.
removing it actually is taking money away that you obviously need.
Yeah,
Well,
I suppose that
obviously,
donation would be there for people who
yeah,
can afford to and who really appreciate what you do.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
because I think that I mean this just falls back into the conversation about language, but the difference between adoption
yeah,
fee means you have to pay it, it's obligatory, it's a demand,
Yeah.
right? Adoption donation is, well, give what you can if you want to.
yeah. Well, what I've done in the past, sometimes I've just said, look, give whatever you want to help the other dogs that are in situations like he's been in and before. And sometimes I find that it actually works out a lot better because people will either give more than the adoption fee, or
Yeah.
they will stick with me and they'll do supportive collections for food or for bedding. They'll spread the word, they'll stay in touch, and you develop good friends and stuff, doing things that way too, I've found. So yeah, I basically say, look, I don't take an adoption fee, but you're welcome to give something to the animals that are in the position that this dog has been in, that you're taking home.
Yeah.
And as well as that, you see, there are other things to consider, like the dogs that I helped yesterday. I didn't take surrender fee. I won't be taking an adoption fee, but both dogs need neutered. And both dogs need vaccinated.
Yeah.
Now, I only do vaccinations about every kind of 3 years. I wouldn't vaccinate on an annual basis except for leptospirosis. But basically, those costs have to be covered.
Yeah.
And a rescue did offer to pay 50% of the neuters, which was very nice of them, but I don't want to deplete anybody's rescue funds. And luckily, the family that are adopting or homing the dogs are willing to look after all their costs.
Yeah.
So that's a win-win for everybody. The rescue that offered still has funds to do 2 other dogs, and these guys are going to be okay and have their neuters done.
Yeah. So I suppose the only positive that can hopefully come out of this is that not only you can place the 7, but hopefully you get 10 or 12 offers come in, so that straight away people can go, well, we know 5 other cows. Because that
Yes.
sometimes can be the beauty of these things, where all of a sudden, I've seen it happen quite often with a dog, you can't get a place anywhere, and then all of a sudden 3
Yes.
rescues come forward, and we end up placing 3 dogs. So sometimes there is a happy ending in that way.
Yeah, it's like the post that I put up, which was very straightforward to the matter of fact. This dog will be put down tomorrow. It does have an appointment at the vets, which was for one of those 2 dogs. And the people that got in touch, there were hundreds. Some of those are now looking at other dogs, and hopefully we'll be able to home a few dogs.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, I can remember all the ins and outs of rescues and the things that people will say and the threats that they'll make and all this kind of stuff just because they no longer wish to be responsible. Everyone's always got to
Yeah.
get rid that night. They always haven't got any more time. They've always left it to the very last minute until you put them on the spot. The amount of people that used to put up posts that say, dog has to be picked up tonight, otherwise it's booked in at the vets. And I'm like, cool, so is the dog coming with a £185 donation? Because that's what they were going to spend on euthanasia. I'll pick the dog
Yeah.
up, but I'm assuming that money's coming. Because the dog's
Yeah.
booked in at the vets, right? So they've committed. So I'll have that. And then when all of a sudden the dog's not booked in at the vets. Well, yeah, of course they're not. But you've used that threat to make people. It's the same with like code red and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of like if you use that language, it's all of a sudden everyone's going to drop everything for me.
But then in general, I find that if someone's prepared to say that, whether it's true or not, there's always a possibility. So I
Yeah,
need to.
of course. But it just takes away from those real code reds and those real
Yeah.
emergencies, doesn't it?
I was going to say
When.
you'll have the 99 blaggers and the one who's being genuine.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
you have to kind of take them all as you can, and just prioritize the animals rather than the people.
Yeah.
not that I don't prioritize people. I find that being in rescue, I didn't realize how many people I would have to deal with over the years, and I would say 80% of it has been great, and 20% of them have been absolute opposite of charmers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Opposite of charmers, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rhymes with anchor. I'm just going to go for a wee. You'll have to carry on chatting.
Yeah, I got a couple of stories from when I used to help out at an animal sanctuary near Liverpool, and people ringing up, wanting younger other animals because they were bored of these ones. And there was one case where somebody wanted to change their dog because they changed their wallpaper and the dog no longer matches.
Oh,
Seriously, that is
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I was telling that story for a long time, and then I started to think, do you know, I wonder whether that's true or not. And because it's so outrageous, right? And so I happened to meet the owner of the sanctuary years later in Wales at a vegan event. And I said, I've been telling this story about the wallpaper thing. Is it true? She said, absolutely true. Yeah.
It just goes to show how far we objectify animals as well, doesn't it? Like when you purchase somebody's life, they become a possession. So therefore, you
yeah.
can do what you wish with them. I was listening to I can't remember who it was. I was listening to somebody, and they were talking about dogs and how technically dogs are protected as a possession. So it was an American guy. I can't remember who it was now, or even what platform it was on. And he was saying basically if he chose to take his dogs in the yard, oh, it was bloody Francione the other night, man. If he chose to take his dogs in the yard and shoot them, he was well within his rights to do that. His legal rights to do that. Um, it
Yeah,
beggars belief.
but you would as well, because it's a question of whether you cause unnecessary suffering or not.
Yeah, exactly
That's the
that.
only
Yeah,
that's the only thing that you could be worried about in terms of actually terminating their life. That's okay.
yeah,
One I can't fathom is farmers shooting dogs with rodent licenses.
yeah.
I don't get that one. So obviously they have to try and not cause unnecessary harm, and should try initially to contain the dog if he's chasing or worrying animals. But they also seem to be getting away legally with shooting dogs whilst holding a license to kill what is classed as rodents. Something to look into.
I wonder if the if that licensing covers like what is deemed as vermin rather than just rodents. That
It
might
does.
be how that
Well,
might be the loophole that can get through. Because if the dog is, if you will, pestering an animal that they want to exploit for profit, they would be
yeah,
classed as vermin legally, wouldn't they?
Yeah, this is a good quote, though, isn't it? Humans worry other animals all the time, right? And so,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh my.
I found that Agriland thing, this
Yeah.
thing about the cull. And of course, Healy Ray, who's a TD, politician in Ireland, for people who don't know, as with characteristic ableism, said that it's absolute madness, this cull. But really, they're not talking about a cull; they're talking about a population reduction, and it would be done by breeding less. So it is true that these headlines about culls are really just shorthand.
But even if they weren't,
Sentence.
though, I mean, the actual sort of literalness of that. Oh my God, they're going to cull these cows so that they can't slaughter them.
yeah, exactly
Like
that. Yeah,
that's what
I
they're
know.
actually saying. They're
The
going to
outrage,
be killed so that they can't be killed.
the outrage essentially is when you dig into it, it's the loss of profit, isn't it? Not the loss of life. The loss of life is what people think they're initially outraged at, but the reason it's made headlines in Agriland is because of the
Do you
loss of
think
profit.
seriously the reason that they're trying to play it off like this and in the way that it's being sort of cast with this spin is because if it becomes public knowledge that a surefire way to reduce
Mhm.
climate change is to
Yeah.
limit the amount of cows that we oppress, that might spread, and that's a serious concern. Whereas actually putting it out as the cows are going to be culled isn't.
Mhm.
The flip side of that as well is they'll not be worried necessarily about the culling of the cows, although they'll be thinking about how much profit they're going to lose by having to cull them cows. It's the not being able to replace those cows because they're not going to kill 200,000 cows and then be able to then replace them with 200,000 more.
No, and I suppose was guilty of all saying it, but like, there's no cull happening. So the cows are being sent to slaughter in the same way that they always were being sent to slaughter, and there'll be some reductions in how many are bred going forward.
Well, Andy, I think what's getting this is a language issue. I think is the sense that if you've got a population um, that is X amount, and then it gets reduced to something else, then technically you might be able to describe that as that population as being culled.
I suppose in Ireland, but the population could go up in say England, and that we would account for it. It would like, yeah, I suppose you
Yeah.
could argue that it would be a cull of cows in Ireland.
Yeah, I suppose that would be the other thing, wouldn't it? It would be a case of they reduce the amount of animals that they exploit in Ireland, but then they import the flesh of cows
Yeah,
from another country to meet the
there's going
demand
to be
because
a
they're still going to
demand
need to meet
still
that demand.
potentially. Yeah, exactly.
So it's a
Yeah.
bit like the fur farming, isn't it, when you think about it?
Well, very similar. Yeah.
Just let's just move the exploitation
Which
across
is
a border.
ironic, isn't it? Considering the main sort of reasoning behind this is apparently the climate, right? So it's now going to be it's going to be better for the environment to rear those cows somewhere else. So all of that potential problem is still there, and then import them either via ferry or plane, which obviously adds to the carbon footprint. So this is the solution.
Yeah, Graham's saying we already import tons and tons of cow flesh. That means Ireland already imports.
You know, look what they did with the fur farms. Like these people imported and bred all these mink, and the solution the Irish government gave was an awful lot of money to the employees that were going to lose their employment and carried on killing all the mink instead of sending them back to where North America or these Swedes brought in businesses and animals into this country and then weren't forced to accept any responsibility for relocating the animals back
Yeah, the problem
to.
is there's nowhere to send them back to.
Well, there is countries in I believe North America and also is it Switzerland, Sweden,
What,
where there
which
where,
are empty of minks?
where there are countries where there are mink natively.
Yeah, but that's the problem.
What's the problem?
Well, because the population of minks in any indigenous situation expand to its limits. So if you then take loads from Ireland back there, you're going to create all kinds of problems.
Well, I suppose an animal that was born into captivity as well. The question would be whether or not that animal would have the life skills to live outside of captivity as well.
That's
What
another
they would
one.
often
But
do
then,
there is they would make shortcuts, and so they might, raid kind of farms which the free living mink might not do, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's look at this hypothetical, right? They don't have mink farms in the middle of cities, so they're always rural. What about if literally down the road was a chicken farm? Would you see
Yeah.
that as a win? The mink are safe and they're out, but they've gone and they've completely destroyed the chickens because they can't escape. So what have you actually solved? And that would just potentially, if there's a farm, what if there isn't? What about if there's a residential area or any? There's so many things that you're potentially causing problems for other free living beings or whatever that you don't even think about. But I mean, going back to the mink thing, quite a lot of those people were paid 2 or 3 times. They were
Yeah.
paid
Yep.
when there was the ban in this country, and then they brought in bans in other countries, and they were paid again.
Our friend Mr. Cobbledick.
Yeah, Cobbledick's a great example. We know at least twice he was paid, suspected 3 times that he could have had a bailout.
So he's like a multimillionaire now.
Yeah, and he's
Yeah.
got organisations in China, in I can't remember which, it might be Hungary now because it was all closed down in Scandinavia. I think it's Hungary, somewhere like that. But he's got 3 operations now, doing better than ever.
I think what's been alluded to though is that I think one of the political parties in Ireland suggested that the solution would be to transport the minks back to whence they came. Exactly how that would be done, and then of course because they're fiercely territorial individuals, the idea of transfer them from a boat or a plane onto trucks, and then maybe every 4 miles letting one go. I don't know what the plan was, but in terms of ecological disaster, it had it written all over it.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
yeah.
They're not exactly cuddly animals, mink either, are they? It's not like you could just rehome them to a family somewhere.
Well, I do know
They
people
also,
who
Keep
I
your
actually
don't
fingers
know
have
enough.
kept.
I don't know
mink.
enough about mink to say this, but for example, if you were to do that with some of the other animals that we breed and use, because of the way that they've been interfered with, they can no longer kind of procreate naturally. So you could end up destroying that natural species too.
Yeah.
If they all link up with partners that potentially are incapable of impregnating them, then they don't continue. So there's lots and lots and lots of factors that go forward. Lots of these animals now they can't naturally procreate. They can't naturally have babies. They can't do
Yep.
that. That's why they use
Graham is
artificial
saying that mink are cuddly. You've not met a mink, Graham.
Well,
Yeah.
there are people in Ireland that do have mink as members of their family, by the way.
Yeah, I'd
Wow.
imagine there are.
Mm.
But the
And
problem is we're
they're
talking about
cuddly
like
and carnivorous.
10,000 at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Like
I mean, look at how much struggle you're having to home 7 bullocks potentially. What about if you've got like 12,000 mink?
oh, absolutely. Look at all the hens who are not getting homed, but getting killed at 18 months. There was a hen rescue today, and I think about 40 people didn't turn up, which meant another trip back to the rescue from Cork to Kildare, but thankfully they all got sorted. But yeah, there's a lot to consider, a lot of factors in all rescues.
Yeah.
But God, I didn't have feel for all those mink. I actually was at a mink farm when I was about 10. I believe we were picking up shavings or something in Glenties. And it was
Sorry, I'm
just
just reading
horrific.
Ducky's comment. There isn't really a debate. We're just having a discussion. That's probably why you can't grasp it because we're not opposing.
Who's this?
I was just replying to Ducky's comments. He said, "Can someone tell me what the debate in question is and what the opposing viewpoints are? I'm a bit lost."
Okay. Right. Well, feel free to head off in another direction. I'll have to head off and get some dogs in.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good chatting to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And like I said, if you can tag me, I'm not your mum, not your milk on Facebook, same as this. But yeah, if you tag me in the post, I'll share that wherever I can, or if someone tags me in our post about them.
Yeah, and I'll do that with Plant Power as well.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Best of luck.
Chat
Thank
soon.
you. See you
Bye.
later.
Bye.
Bye.
There isn't much going on in the chat, to be fair.
No, there's not. I'm gonna have to drop off in a minute anyway because my
No,
battery's
I'm only going till 10 anyway, so whatever is it, this will be our last subject, I suppose, of discussion. I'm
dying.
not sure what happened to Lou. He must have just jumped off.
I think he's still in the chat.
Okay. But thank you for joining us as well, Lou, while she was on.
So what did we have something else on the agenda?
We didn't really, to be honest. There wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot today. There was only really that comment and whatever. But I do think it kind of poses an interesting sort of question towards animal rising and anyone using this animal lover concept, that really does sum up the vast majority of the audience that you're hoping to reach.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Yeah, it might only be one comment, but that really is kind of the viewpoint of
Well,
most
I
It
mean,
people.
outlines the mentality though, doesn't it? It's
Yeah, it
these
does. It
people
does.
aren't necessarily animal lovers, and you don't have to be an animal lover to be vegan. You just have to respect life and be opposed to repression. But a lot of people that say that they're animal lovers, let's face it, they're not, are they? They're domesticated companion animal lovers.
Well, yeah, and even that's very selective. I mean, you get people that love dogs and hate cats, right? Like, so
Yeah, or hate rats and
yeah,
rodents.
yeah, exactly that.
we talked to do that. We're having that conversation today on the street when Lou was there. About the idea of this nation of animal lovers being Britain is obviously chock-a-block full of houses of slaughter.
Yeah.
Quite a few vivisection laboratories, quite a few vivisection supply things, and God knows what else, And so, but I don't. It's still very difficult to know what Animal Rising are trying to get at, really, with this, claims, really.
Well, I personally think it's because they're going to be focusing on big things like the Grand National,
Yeah, but all
where
the animal lovers are betting on them, though.
Yeah, I mean, I
yeah,
suppose the one thing that we do need to take into consideration with this is because they're not promoting veganism, their claim isn't necessarily that you have to love animals to be vegan because they're not putting those two things in the same bracket. They don't discuss veganism
no,
at all. It
they don't.
seems as though they're actually trying to use that kind of so-called reputation to hold people to account. The problem is people aren't going to care.
So yeah, what I was going to say is I think it's just for numbers. Let's face it, when you can reach out to 25% of the population instead of what, like 3% of the
Yeah,
population
absolutely.
of
Yeah,
the UK
yeah.
at least, then you're going to get bigger numbers at these rallies and stuff that they're doing, aren't you? Um, so it's like, yeah, they are an abolitionist vegan group, apparently. Their claims making isn't always that because they want big volume of people there. And they'll say that it's, the good thing is when you get non-vegans, they can talk about veganism. But I'm sorry, when you're super glued to a hurdle on a horse racing track, you're not going to be sat next to the person that's had a egg sandwich for the breakfast going, oh, by the way, while I've got you, you know what
Yeah,
I
well, I
mean?
mean, you could literally argue, couldn't you, that they've had quite a lot of opportunities and platforms where they could have took that opportunity and said, well, this is fundamentally what we're about, and these are
Yeah,
just
exactly. And then they did the dairy farm, and they were like calling all vegans like, no, this is where the animal lovers should be.
yeah. That's
Show
that's
them
that's def-
what
that's
they're
definitely
funding.
what I would agree with as well. If you're going to try and hold people to account for loving animals or whatever, then that's got to spread across the board. Otherwise, all you're doing is you're just perpetuating the speciesism, which you're not addressing at all.
Yeah,
You're basically
exactly.
saying, oh yeah, all the people that do love horses, we're not asking you to come to this one because we know you don't give a shit about cows.
It won't be long before someone like Piers Morgan cottons onto the fact that they can get, hundreds of people to. I'm going to use the Grand National as an example because obviously it was the biggest one. But then you've got like a handful going to a dairy farm, and there'll be a couple more actions that they do where they get big turnouts for the thing that they're attracting, if you will, that they're trying to attract more than just vegans, and they'll get a handful of people who are actually there for animal rights
Yeah.
when they're doing the more obviously animal rights based stuff. Um, and it'll only be a matter of time before Piers Morgan picks up, or someone like Piers Morgan picks up on it and uses it against them.
Yeah, you'll see that as they become a bigger threat, basically, as they start to
Yeah,
get towards those numbers that they're looking for, and they actually start to be sort of recognised as an opposition rather than just a piss take, which is how the media potentially see them at the moment. No
yeah.
offence meant. That's the truth. In the same way that all vegans are.
Well, I suppose it was the
That'll
same
be
with
more.
Extinction Rebellion, were just seen as a more of a nuisance until they shut London down.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Until they actually cause a problem or are seen as a proper threat somewhere, that's when you'll start to see them challenged in these places. At the moment, they don't. They're not really seen as one. They're a
Yeah.
bit of a kerfuffle, aren't they? They're a bit of a fuss. That's it.
They're an inconvenience, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's it. They're
Have you
an
seen what's going
inconvenience.
on in the chat? Graham's saying that Lou didn't know he wasn't even still on, and
Oh.
Lou's saying I didn't know I was off.
Oh
And
shit. Yeah, he left a while ago.
yeah,
Like probably.
the third part of that is that we didn't notice that you were off as well.
No,
So
no, I
yeah.
didn't notice for a little while, and then right. I think you've been off for a while though, Lou. Yeah. So sorry if you were talking and you felt like we were ignoring
Well, knows,
you. Yeah.
It's probably the best way to do it. If you want to just to rave and rant, you just turn yourself off and then just do it, and nobody can hear you, but you can't be interrupted either. So
Oh, so no, you weren't even like displayed for us, Lou. Like it literally was like you weren't in the box anymore because there was a gap in between Roger and Tara.
Yeah.
Goodness. But no, I think just to be fair, just some of the posts in that Marshall and Millions group alone, not even just the one I put up as the comment, but just some of the posts that are in there and the various comments on them really kind of that. See, for me, if you're going to do research, like they always talk about the research that they've done, we've done all this research which tells us how the best way to advocate is and blah, 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 blah. But none of these people that have ever written down this research or produced this research have actually got any experience by the sort of way it seems, because none of them ever take any of these viewpoints into consideration. And considering they're the majority, you think they would. So I never really understand what researches they've done. I mean, we never know how many vegans there are or what they
Yeah,
think
well,
about veganism. So I never know
that's
what this research is based on or where it comes from or anything. But it always seems to stem from a complete lack of actual hands-on experience with dealing with any of these like animal rescue people or dog rescue people that are completely trapped within speciesism, but also feel that they're already doing enough by doing this or that they don't have to change even when it's pointed out to them.
yeah.
That part has never been taken into their consideration when they do their research at all, and yet that is a real common viewpoint.
And when we have conversations with people on the street, we don't really know what their actions are going to be off the back of that. They'll be like, yeah, I'm going vegan today. And then they might go to the restaurant they're on the way to and then have a plant-based meal and then actually by tomorrow morning they forgot about it and they're back to the normal ways because such is life. We don't really know. And when I don't know what the research is based on, I can only assume it's based on some form of questionnaire. And if someone's saying to you, what's the best way of portraying a message? Is it an uncomfortable truth, or is it a comfortable, you know, a comfortable way of saying a similar message? Well, the most people are going to go, well, the best way to do that's going to be the more comfortable way for everyone involved, isn't it? When actually, no one really, to the best of my knowledge, no one really knows what the best way forward is. And if you look at history, I would say that when we've had social justice movements that have actually made a difference, it's been the ones that have been the most consistently disruptive.
Yeah. Yeah, that element of direct action is always got to be there, regardless of how certain people
Yeah, well,
perceive it. And
I
without it,
suppose
you'll never get any change.
there's,
If every single vegan everywhere was kind of like baby steps, don't push this on anyone. This is how we've got to be. Everyone's on a journey. Blah 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 blah. We'd never see change ever.
I mean, there's two things you've got to do, isn't there, really, with the social. I mean, Roger will know more than this than me. I'm fairly ignorant with this, but my perception is with the social justice movement, there's two things that you need to do to actually get taken seriously. You need to grow numbers in order for you to become a threat to the people that you would potentially be voting for, and you need to sway the general public to think in a similar manner. Once you do those two things, then the people in power will be forced to make changes because if you can vote for someone who will and you have the power to sway that from a governmental point of view, that's a threat to them now. So it's like it's the balance of those two things. But I'm sure Roger, as a sociologist, they'll probably tell us if I'm way off the mark there.
Well, I won't, because I was reading the chat. I didn't actually concentrate on what you were saying. I'm really sorry about that, Kev. Do you want to say it again? Sorry, I'm really sorry.
I mean, I listened, Kevin. I would agree with you. Welcome back, Lee. I'm only going till 10, by the way.
That's okay. I was just going to jump in. I'm one of the baby steps guys that you're talking about.
Yeah, well,
Roger, the correct
this is what I'm saying. So imagine every single person, and this works both ways, right? Because I mean, I would say that if everybody had a stern approach that was seen as pushy, then the people that have the mentality that we talked about earlier, that see us as like holier than thou, that's not going to work on them. So I actually think there needs to be that balance. But
Yeah.
the actual way it seems to be is that the sort of abolition position is being more and more forced out, because there's all the research says it doesn't work, but there's no research to say this.
Well,
I mean, let's look at it this way, and I'll take it aside from veganism. I in my life have been cheated on by 3 or 4 serious partners. At every single point when that's happened, I wish I'd known X amount of time sooner. I wish I'd connected the dots sooner. I wish I'd believed someone that tried to tell me. I wish I hadn't bullshitted or hid the truth from myself, because as horrible as the truth was always the truth, right? And that's it. And it's kind of the same with this. Yeah, it might seem nasty and it might seem horrible, but you'd much rather just accept it that day and be like, that's the truth, I'm going to have to take it for what it is, than have it slowly drip fed to you in text message form or screenshot form. I'm still talking about cheating here. Like,
I get it.
so yeah, that's it for me. I mean, yeah, sometimes the person that tells you is going to be like, "Oh, you're a fucking asshole," right? But who cares if it's still the truth? The truth matters more than your feelings. It matters more than your opinion of that individual.
But
100%. But like when sorry, was someone else talking there?
just to jump in quickly, just to give them a concept of cheating and find out about cheating. It's a good example, because actually it also goes as far to say, when someone is told that there is categorical evidence and proof that the partner is cheating, they still won't believe it.
I was that person, honestly. Yeah, like what I'm talking about. I'd be sent screenshots and it weren't enough. I'd need more. I'd need more. I'd need more. And all he was doing was torturing me. The truth was there from the first time.
Yep.
So I can use that experience to understand and go, you've got an option of giving someone the truth or giving them some bullshit for 6 months before you give them the truth. Give them the truth. You know, it's respectful at the end of the day too.
Here's the thing, Andy, right? So there's 2 parts to this. So the first one is the fact that I don't care what someone's reason is for going there, like whether it's for health, for the environment, for the animals, right? So that's one thing. The end game for me is the same, and that's to dismantle the industries that are running the show, basically, for the cruelty side of things. The second part of this, right, is consistency. Now, I know that I've, since the age of like 13 through puberty, I always wanted to have a 6-pack, right? Always. But I know that in order for me to do that, I need to get up early, go to the gym, start doing X, Y, Z, doing this, doing that. If I know that I need to do this every single day, there's going to come a point where I'm like, do you know what? I'm not built for this, man. So I would rather be in a position where I can say to somebody, look, I would be more happy for you to be plant-based for 2 days a week for the rest of your life than do it for 24/7 for a month and then be like, do you know what? This is too much for me. I'll give up, man. So
yeah,
this is
I understand that. I do. And I mean, in some senses, if we were just talking about a diet or whatever, then I suppose there's some relevance there. But I suppose the difference is, if you choose not to go to the gym anymore, the only person that's losing out on the 6-pack is you. There's no victim involved.
100%.
Whereas those other 5 days, you know, like oppression is still everywhere.
I get that 100%, mate. However, saying that, knowing the vast majority of the human population, right? Let's say if everybody was to convert to a very look, please don't misconstrue this or take this down some wrong path, right? But let's say, for example, there was a really strict religion, Orthodox Islam, Orthodox Judaism, whatever that may be, right? And from day one, for the rest of their life, they need to adhere to strict rules. And if the entire population was told to do this, how many do you think would last the duration if it was a choice for them to do so?
Sorry, explain again.
Okay, let's say, for example, right, because you're talking to people now that have eaten meat for their entire lives. They're the ones, I couldn't live without a slice of bacon first thing in the morning, etc., right? They're stuck in this loop of, vegans, I said this to Roger, like, vegans eat rabbit food and salads. right? So you're taking a person that's completely not from this. You're implanting an alien idea into them and saying, look, we're expecting you to do this for the rest of your life. And let's say you're trying to convert the entire nation on doing that. How many of them do you think would last the duration, and how many of them would drop out?
Well, I think a big part of it can depends on what information they're given. I
Yeah,
mean,
I agree.
this is why when we're talking about morality, you have to be consistent. You can't be part time against slavery. It don't work like that. You've got to
I
have this
100% agree.
consistent view. So when we're kind of saying to people, it's okay to be vegan 2 days a week, in their mind, it's like, well, this matters as much as what colour tie I'm going to wear. It doesn't matter in the sense that this really matters. It's a moral emergency. There are victims involved. Whereas, which it does when we're like, nah, that's a step. But 7 days a week, every
Yeah.
day, the end of all use is what
Yeah,
we're talking
but
about.
there's an easy solution to all this, guys, which is that Lou said that I'll be happy if somebody, was say vegan for 2 days a week. Let's just use that phrase. Means plant-based for two days a week, right? But that doesn't mean that that's going to be our campaign, and that's not what we're asking them to do.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So
So
the thing is,
that's a
again,
solution.
it goes back
So
to consistency, though. So and how sustainable is that for that one particular person? So if I know now, I'm going to say to somebody, look, what I want, try it for a few days, see how you get on. If you can see that you can manage, then we can have a broader conversation. Oh man, I can teach you so much more. First, they need to realize that it's achievable and that it's actually not the end of the world. Because you're talking to very closed-minded people here, and to go from one extreme to another, which is in their mind an extreme, doesn't always work, my man. So sometimes you've got to be in a position where you have to have that certain level of flexibility in order to then
but
reach a
Lou,
stage where you
the
can
difference
influence.
is you don't have to give them the steps. You can let them take their own steps. You've got to give them their agency.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
we say what the position is. Like Colleen said just before, morality doesn't work like that. So we tell them what the moral position is, and then they use their agency to get there if they agree with the proposition.
Yeah, which ties into
We don't
different
have to
people's.
spell it out. First of all, you do this, then you do that for 3 weeks. Then you don't need to do that bit.
Yeah,
No,
and
but
I
you're talking to
suppose.
somebody who's already coming in closed-minded and saying, "Listen, I couldn't do that." So I'm in a position to then say, "Listen, try for a few days, see for yourself. It's you're not going to die by trying."
So, Lou, I think what Roger's basically saying is if we talk about the ethics, the morality, and the reason behind why we make the choices that we make,
Hmm.
help them understand the end goal of what a vegan mindset is. If we help them get there, they can take their own steps, which works well for their lifestyle and their personality and the
Hmm.
way that they work to get to where they are. But if they are vegan in knowledge, if you will, for want of a better term, and are taking a journey, if you will, to get there, then I suppose that's kind of they'll get there eventually.
Hmm.
Whereas if we put out a message that's kind of more around the utilitarian reductionary kind of thing, then people will start to think, well, if I do it 2 days a week, that's enough. But then they'll still be exploiting animals 5 days a week. But actually, on the 2 days a week that they're not, they'll still be potentially exploiting animals in other ways, because they're just thinking about the choices that they make 3 times a day and not the impact of the choices when they buy cleaners for the house or when they need to buy a new wallet or if they, a whole host of other things that kind of don't stem from what they put on a plate.
Can I ask you a question, mate? In fact, to
Yeah,
all of you, because somebody once said something to me, and it kind of it just gave me a bit of an aha moment right there, right? So it's an expression. You've probably all heard this before. I'm curious as to your take on it. So they say a handful of perfect vegans aren't going to really make a dent, but it's the 1 million imperfect vegans that will have the impact on overall. What do you think about that?
You're missing your point. You're missing the point, I think, Lou. In the
Go
sense,
on.
it's a question. It's a question of what is the message that we encode, and what is the message that they decode. Now that the decode part is up to them. The encode part is up to us. And so what we tell them is the values of veganism, what it stands for, what it means to be a vegan, what it means to be pro-justice, pro-peace, and all the rest of it. And then they can decode that message. We can't do anything about that, but we don't have to get involved with their side of it. We just have to make sure that we present a consistent moral position going out. That's the transmission part of it. We can't control the receiving part of it. We can't do that, but we can control the transmission part of it.
I get that. I think it's more, in my view, it's more of a means justifying an ends. Like I said to me, it doesn't matter if somebody's doing it for health reasons or for whatever the reason behind it is.
Well, the research is against you there a little bit because what the research basically says, there's not a lot of it, so that's one caveat. But what the research
How do you mean?
What?
Oh, the research. Sorry.
So there's not a lot of research, yeah. But what the research suggests is that it doesn't. I agree with you. It doesn't matter how people come into the idea, but it does matter whether they engage with the ethics or not, because the research is that if they don't engage with the ethics, then they tend to fall away. And so the ideal situation is that if people come in on the health side or the environmental side, and then they engage with the ethics as early as possible, that's the ideal situation, because that means that we're more likely to, they're more likely to, stay, as it were.
Well, that happened to me, to be fair, and part of what I do with work is helping people to make changes to their lives. Anyway, but so I know when it comes to diet, you go through. It's actually called a diet cycle. If you look on Google, you'll see what it is. Basically, someone decides they're going to they're going to start a diet for X reason, and they go through this cycle of having the benefits of it, seeing changes, then they plateau, then they fall off the wagon, and they come back to day one.
Right. This is why I talk about baby steps.
Right, yeah, but we're talking about diet. If you make someone known that this is an anti-oppression movement, in the same way that I said to someone racism is wrong, and they turn around and go, "Well, yeah, you're probably right, but I'm still going to be racist 5 days a week," I'm going to counter that. Yeah. So,
Andy.
so if I make someone well aware at the very beginning that this is what we're against and why we're against it, if they make the decision to be against it 2 days a week, that's really going to go against their fundamental of all other oppression. Whereas if I make them believe it's a diet that they can pick and choose as they want, that's exactly what they're going to do. We have to have our strongest message, and then it's up to them if they want to baby step into it. But if we give them baby steps, they'll baby step our baby steps.
Yeah. That's fine, but Andy, right? If say 50% of the population decided to go plant-based 2 days a week, what do you genuinely not feel that would massively dent the cages and slaughterhouses out there?
The answer is yes, but that's not our campaign, though.
I get that, but again, it's the end to the means.
That's the bottom line. Then
this is it.
I mean, the point is, it's about agency. Like we can't. I mean, we could try and mentor them in these baby steps, if you like, and say, well, we do this and then we do that, and we give them timelines and whatever. Or you can say, well, look, you're a rational being, you've got agency. We're telling you what the position is from our point of view. What do you think? And then leave it to them. Now, if they ask for advice, that's different.
Yeah, I suppose that's why you've got multiple different kind of versions of activism, I suppose. So you've got people like yourself, Roger, who educate people on the ethics of veganism, and then you've got people like Lou, I suppose, for want of a better term. And what Lou is probably is more helpful is towards the diet and lifestyle side of things. So people come to Roger, they'll talk to Roger about the ethics, they'll make a connection, and then the first thing they'll do is think, shit, what am I going to eat? And then they'll stumble upon across a page.
It's all to do with the VIP banners. Before you ask how, before you ask, I can't remember the way it goes now, but before you ask how, ask why.
Yeah.
Because when people know the why, then the how becomes either easier, or it means that they'll kind of research that bit. Once the why is there, that gives them a really solid kind of motivational kind of impulse,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
then they'll seek out people like Lou.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, 100%
Well,
agree. Yeah. And
yeah.
I think this conversation right now is complete proof of what I said. Why it doesn't matter if everyone's got the same mentality, everyone could potentially be wrong. Whereas if there's lots of people doing different things, that balance potentially is it's another piece of the jigsaw. It's another hole in the blind
Oh,
puzzle.
look, we're on the same team here. We may,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, we've got
exactly. That's what I'm
different
saying. It wouldn't
approaches.
work even if everybody had this absolute abolition position. I mean, it's
Yeah.
great if everyone did, but the problem is you would have so many put off by that holier than thou approach. Yeah, you would. So, like, you kind of got to take that into consideration.
Well, I
But
suppose you've
like,
got
take
people.
my guy, the one, like he challenged me to do this random thing. I was talking to you guys about it earlier with the hot chip challenge, so to speak. I was like, okay, no worries. I'm going to prove to you now that you don't need meat. Just to start off with, I didn't say you don't need eggs, you don't need cheese, you don't need the rest. So you just don't need meat. First of all, start with this. He had the Beyond Burger. He saw that, okay, look, we're not in 1995 anymore. You're not eating some mushy beans in crust. It's not what it was. You know, we have the technology today to make very, very good food. He doesn't eat meat anymore. I hope he sustains it, and I do hope that it will last for him. But he's taken a baby step, and that's already one
Yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah. I mean, and that's great. But let's look at this kind of from the peripheral a minute. So let's say this guy, and I mean, I'm not going to pick on him. So let's just change
Go
it
on.
to a random guy and just say Mr. Smith that we're talking about. Everything else is the same, right? Like, if that's the only thing that he thinks is the problem, then potentially somewhere down the line you're going to have a conversation about dairy. Then you're going to have a conversation about eggs. Then you're going to have a conversation about breeding. Then you're going to have a conversation about fur. Then you're going to have. Whereas if you just make it known at the very beginning that fundamentally we're against the exploitation of any other at any point at any for any reason. It's kind of like all those caveats are covered, whereas otherwise these baby steps end up with having about 50 different
Ah,
conversations.
Well,
that
here's the
would have been
thing.
a very
Here's the thing.
difficult conversation to have with Ronnie because he's got quite a big following for being a fisherman.
But here's the
So
thing, right? So if I'm not in a position to now turn that round as a positive and say, "Wow, mate, good, do you know what? Good on you, man. I'm really proud of you for doing this." If I'm then going to say, "Okay, right, this is what you need to do next," but in a tone of, "All right, yeah, that's great," but do you know what I mean? You need to
You don't,
pat
you
people
don't,
on
you
the back
don't need to tell
sometimes.
him to do anything. You should just remind him of your position and why you hold it.
That's the thing. I don't know. I don't know, man. My approach is slightly different to that. I'll show someone the light. Whether they want to walk towards it is completely up to them. But I can't. There's a limit to how far I'll go with this, and it's not about me not doing my bit. I genuinely do quite a lot, but
No,
that's
but
not the
surely
conversation.
you saying I'm vegan and this is the reason why is much
Oh,
less
oh no!
aggressive
Look, that's
than
not.
you
You
telling
know,
him what he should be doing and why. Because you're
I
you're not
I
you're
can't
not
see
even you're not
myself
even
making
telling him
him.
anything. You're making a
No, no, no.
suggestion
I get
based
that.
on.
I get that, Andy. I can't see myself converting him into a vegan. What I can do is hopefully help him make steady impacts here and there that will eventually lead him to making his own realizations in it. But it starts off with one thing. He's not, in my opinion, again, this is about opinions. In my humble opinion, I don't think he's the type of person that will change overnight. But, you know, that's me.
Yeah, that's fair enough, and I
He
suppose
goes
it would
he
be
goes
impossible
fishing on
to
a
find
weekend.
out.
That's the type.
This comes back all into the research as well, because it would be impossible to find out that the end result of that particular scenario anyway. Because as it seems, he's never been given the full information about what even veganism is and what it stands for. So
Mhm.
he's only being tiptoed into it. So like this is why most people don't know because they're tiptoed into it, or the information that they are given is from a welfare point of view. You can't
No,
really
but
get any.
you're missing the point though, Andy. This is a guy that's been eating barbecues his entire life, and now he's seen that hey, it's possible.
yeah, but only
He's
from a
seen that it's
diet
That was
point of
that
possible.
was
view.
all of us
So,
once.
Yeah.
so I suppose what Andy's saying, Lou, is that what you've helped Robbie understand is from a sensory pleasure point of view, he doesn't have to have animals killed anymore.
Right.
So he doesn't
Which is a
understand
positive.
anything. He doesn't understand anything about animal rights or ethics because he's still dragging fish out of the habitat every weekend. That's kind of like what Andy's kind of trying to say is when he says
100% get that.
he's been
I'm not
tiptoed in,
arguing.
he doesn't understand the full. So what Andy's basically saying is that the approach that Andy would possibly have took would be: this is my position. this is what vegan is. This is how, we're violating the rights of others. Do with that what you will. And then I suppose the way that you work is that your format is built upon food because that's your passion. So what you would then probably have done is then still went in with the hot chip challenge and still went in with the plant-based burger, and you would probably still be potentially on the same path. But the difference would be that he would understand what your position on animal rights was.
Yeah,
Oh, we've had
literally,
the
it's pretty much
conversation.
everything that you've already done. But at the beginning, whatever, it's like I'm vegan because I'm against animal use. It's not just the fact that flesh is being eaten. That's just one tiny percentage of the problem, and that's it. It's done from the beginning then. And then every time that there's something that comes up, you can just remind them of your position. Whereas actually, that first time you have a conversation, it's going to seem like, well, that's not what you said.
Oh no, I have. I've had the conversation. That's how it all ended up happening. He was like, "What made you get into that?" And I explained to him. I explained to him the whole animal welfare, animal rights, everything about it. And then he was like, "Oh, I don't think I could do that." And I was like, "Let me prove to you that you can." And that's
Yeah,
how we ended up doing what we did.
I get your position, I think, Lou, because it's we used to get a lot of people coming up to the stall, and they would kind of announce kind of very proudly that they were vegetarians. And what they wanted us to do is say, "Oh, that's fantastic," right? And of course we weren't inclined to do that, but we didn't want to, really have a go at them. So I came up with a bit of a joke, and I said, "Oh, don't worry, we've got a cure for that." But what we're really saying is that it is good that they're vegetarian compared with others, but if they're asking for our endorsement of it, then that creates a difficulty. So I can understand the tension here.
In what way?
Well, because you were kind of like saying, well, it's kind of like you're going to praise this guy and all this kind of stuff, but it's a question of you have to do it in a way that they understand that what they're doing. I'm struggling with words here, but I mean what they're doing is nowhere close to veganism.
Yeah.
Oh no,
And
100%. Just
Yeah.
imagine though, like, so what I'm saying, I'm talking about celebrating the positive steps. Let's take Alcoholics Anonymous for example.
Hmm.
You reach milestones, everybody claps, you get a badge. But these are positive reinforcements that you need. Some people need that. Some people genuinely need that. They're like, okay, look, man, I'm struggling a bit here. I really need that slice of whatever, man, a pizza, whatever it could be. And sometimes to be in a position where you'd say, mate, you're doing amazing, you're doing great.
Yeah,
I
but
think
I understand that, and if you put it in the context of anonymous of Alcoholics Anonymous, then you can understand that. But there's kind of no victim there apart from well, I suppose there's a family and all that. But
well, I suppose it would be a case of saying, and use that same example, but the person says, "I need a liter of vodka, and that means I'm going to brain my wife tonight." Then you would have a different because that's creating a victim. And I know you were kind of laughing about it, but I suppose that's a
I get
that's a closer comparison because eating the pizza is creating a victim. So
I
therefore,
get that, but we're talking about a dependency because people still think they have a dependency on certain foods. And that's where I come in, the food part of it. People think they have a dependency on, oh, I can't live without but whatever it may be, whatever meat and two veg for dinner. It's how I've always been brought up. I couldn't live without it. I'm here to say, do you know what? I bet you can. That's what I do. Like that's my thing. Like I'm very much in admiration of anyone who can make it, who has the resources to go out and campaign every day. Salute, massive salute to you. I'll do what I can, man, and like that's my approachable way of doing things. And if it does anything, if I can get one person to eat no meat, then it's something. I think. I hope.
yeah, I agree with that, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
Okay, Deborah.
It's just that that is not your campaign. So
How do you mean?
it's just that what they've done in relation to your propounding of veganism.
yeah, I suppose it's so when you go back to Robbie and go, great with the meat, mate. now it's time to get rid of cheese. You'd be like, whoa, hang on, the goalposts to move now. So
Well,
But but he's
again,
still one more
I
person
don't think
buying a
it's about
Beyond.
prescribing for people some kind of, okay, well, there's this, the first stage is this, the second stage. I don't
Mhm.
think, I think we should let people have their agency and just
Yeah.
say, well, this is our position. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, one of the easiest ways that I like to do is I'll tell people that I'm against all forms of oppression, and normally they'll go, "Yeah, me too," and I'm like, "Really? Are you vegan?" And they're like, "Oh no, no." And so that's great straight away. I can tell them my position and why I am vegan and what I stand for, and then they can think in their mind, well, I potentially am against those things as well, but I do actually cause them. Whereas if I'm just talking about food. There's no connection there to the fundamental wrong. Because, I mean, at the moment with this Robbie, it's great, but it's all taste based. So if they brought out the brand new Aberdeen Angus tomorrow and someone offered him the challenge in the same way you have, that taste could be changed again. There's no ethics there.
But do you not think food is the one main thing it's the main one? Okay, so we've got horse racing, we've got greyhounds, we've got fox hunting, we've got everything around it. But the biggest aspect of all of this is the food.
Well, the biggest aspect is justice, actually.
Yes, I know,
Yeah.
but when you're talking to the masses, the general public, the one thing that's on their mind, the one thing that really concerns them more
Yeah,
than anything is
yeah,
the food.
I know what you mean, and I agree
Do you
with
know
you.
what I'm saying? I'm not.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's extend this hypothetical just quickly before we end the show. So let's just say we can do the Thanos click, and we've now got 100% plant-based population in, say, England or in the UK,
Right.
right? Now, how do we use the whole "don't worry, you can have this great taste without anyone dying" sort of effect to stop fox hunting, horse racing, zoos? How do we extend that to get them to be against animal use?
Because you've already got them to a stage where they're enlightened to the point where they're like, okay, look,
But
we
they're not
stopped doing
enlightened
this.
because of the problem. They're enlightened because it suits them better.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the
I
problem.
suppose when we're talking about from a sensory pleasure point of view, if they experience something that they don't like, so let's say that we do go to the cheese thing, if you will, vegan cheese, let's face it, it ain't great, not all of it. Um, so you pick up a block of Tesco vegan cheese, which is the worst one I've had.
It's
I've had a few.
disgusting.
Yeah, and then you try that, you think, what? This tastes like some kind of off yogurt. What the hell is this crap? And then you go straight back to dairy because vegan food tastes crap. You know what I mean? So it's like when you're looking at it from a what point of spec, like to go back to what Roger was saying, when you're looking at it from a what can you do point of perspective, then it's a case of, well, I don't like that, therefore I'll go back to this. When you're looking at it from a why are you doing it perspective, you are less like, so that's me. I went plant-based for health. I'm not plant-based for health anymore. I'm plant-based because
Yep.
I'm vegan for animals, or vegan for, I suppose, for the respect of others. So it's it's do I like this cheese? No. Am I going to go back to dairy? No. I'm going to see if there's something else. And if there's not, do you know what it is? I'll live without it. I'll sprinkle nutritional yeast on top of my burger if I want something cheesy on there. Is it the same? Not always. But do you know what? It's better than causing an issue for somebody else. So it's
I think it's about Kev. I think it's about remembering that humans are basically selfish. We care
well,
about like as a generalization. We look after number one at the end of the day, man. Like and if I'm in a
See,
position where
I would actually disagree with that and say that
you think,
that's the view that's been imposed upon us to cause
yeah,
division rather than, I think people actually genuinely, for the most part, are good people. Most people are naturally against oppression. They just don't realize that they're oppressing.
oh no
yeah,
no no no, I'm
Most
not saying
people are
necessarily
naturally
oppressive,
against
not
harm or
necessarily
love or
oppressive.
any of these things. They really are. Like they're just victims of their culture. But I don't think any of this is why I sort of have the conversations the way that I do, because that is what we're opposing here. And most people already understand these commonalities. They already understand that they're not against racism because there's a better way in terms of they could be nicer about it. It's fundamentally wrong. So it's not a question of there's a better taste or there's a better this. The actual thing that we're opposing is what the issue is, not that there's an alternative which looks better, tastes better, feels better, is cheaper. Because otherwise, eventually, someone will just bring out another version which opposes yours, and you've got no ethics there whatsoever. You've got no grounds.
In what way do you mean a better version of what? Sorry.
So let's just say hypothetically, to go back to the example, this person thinks the Beyond Burger's great. Okay, like I said, they bring out the brand new flesh burger that's got this extra thing, and someone offers them a challenge to eat it, and that's their new taste perspective. No ethics, because there was no fundamental wrong ever made aware. They just like the taste better
Oh
than an
no,
old taste, and now they
right.
like a new taste better than that taste.
But the moment he finished that burger, Andy, what I said to him, how was that? He goes, that was amazing. And I said, and do you know what? Not a single soul needed to die in order for you to enjoy that. And that basically drove it home. I hope it did, and I hope it lasts. But again, it came for him in me his whole life, and saying, "Oh, I could never do that." That goes back to the selfish gene in humans, being like, "Do you know what? I'm looking out for number one at the end of the day." And I think most of us, we're flawed, man. It is what it, humans are flawed, and they will generally look out for their own self-interests. And if it means them preferring to use a bit of willful blindness here or there, or willful convenience, for use of a better word, they'll tend to do that. So, I don't know, man. Again, I'm not arguing. This is not an argument. This is a
No,
friendly
there's
debate.
no
We're on the
argument.
same
It's just
team, man.
like I
No.
introduced the conversation with. This is exactly why when you said, I'm one of those baby steps people, and I said, well, look, it wouldn't work if everyone is absolute about any position. That would be a problem. I think the fact that we have got different people that approach things in different ways, that balance is important.
I've got an example of somebody that I work with who she's making a connection with the ethics, and she asked me. So she said that she couldn't cope with things like seeing the graphic footage. She's aware of what happens, but she's she can't watch that sort of stuff. So I was like, well, don't torture yourself then. I was like, what do you want to know more about? She's like, well, I want to know more about like what it is. So I was like, get onto Roger's YouTube channel, watch some of his gear. Told him about Andy, told him about Tom Reagan, Gary Francione. I was like, you want to be listening to what these people say about animals, and listen about and about animals as in all animals, including us. And they're still not vegan. They're still not making vegan choices, but they're experimenting with like the little things at the minute. So like honey, for example, she has honey in her coffee every day. So she's trying out different vegan versions of like honey replacements. She's not necessarily thinking about meat replacements, but she's trying out different meals with things like lentils and stuff instead. So she's on the path now where she's understanding the ethics, and now she's trying to figure out how that fits in with the lifestyle. And I think she'll get there eventually. But she's going from a this isn't for me perspective straight away. And then she's figuring out what she likes from a sensory point of view herself. So I'm not saying that my way is better than yours, or my way is right and your way is wrong. It's just, I suppose, probably a similar situation where someone's making a lifestyle change, just with a different approach, I suppose. Both of them, however, aren't vegan, from what I can gather. Not yet. But yeah,
No, mine doesn't.
we'll see what happens, and I'll keep you guys updated with what happens with this person, and if they do eventually come in and go, I'm there. And we'll wait and see.
Good.
Yeah,
Fingers crossed, man. Look, like I said, I can't see my guy. My guy. I can't see Robbie. Going the full way with it. But it's one less.
Why do you say that, Lou?
He's got a fishing boat. He goes fishing on the weekends. Like, this is his passion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but I mean, in the sense that we're talking about, what you should do is one of these Saturdays, bring him in here. Don't join yourself, and then he'll go back to you and think, well, you're the reasonable vegan. I'll listen to you more, and then you can be a little bit more. That it always sometimes works with the whole bad cop, good cop thing.
So this is right. I hate right. You brought it up, right? So this is my thing. Oh man, I'm gonna get slack for this. The reasonable vegan thing. That's my kind of thing. Like, that's more my approach with it. Because so many people say to me, "Look, I've joined these Facebook groups. Like, people are there, they're bashing each other, they're this, they're that, they're that." I'm like, listen, mate. There's another way. I don't want to use the word liberal as such, but a bit more kind of I don't know what how the right the
I'm
right way to put
reasonable.
it.
I'm reasonable, Lou. But I want to go back to this guy. Like,
Yeah.
you talk about his passion, right? You say he goes out on a boat. I mean, I'd love to do that at the weekend. But is it the pulling the fishes out of the water that he gets a kick out of, or something?
It's the catch and release thing he does. He says I don't eat them and I don't hook them in, but oh no, I think he does. He does hook them, and I was like, do you not think that's a bit painful?
I mean, like, I mean, can he describe what he gets from that? Because, I mean, it seems to me, I mean, like, I think everybody would love to go on a boat and bob around in the sea and all that, but
I
the
think for him
actual.
it's more of a yay, I caught a fish.
Okay, in
Yeah,
that case, then I'll tell you what you could do, because I mean I've seen quite a few of these videos now on TikTok, and they keep getting suggested for me on the algorithm. And I mean, I absolutely hate fishing now, but I used to quite like fishing when I was younger, and I quite like the idea of this magnet fishing thing and seeing some of the things that people are pulling out of canals and stuff.
That's pretty cool, that actually. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
I've
no,
seen
no
that.
harm. You get all the same thrill. You might even make a few quid.
it's yeah. So I used to fish.
No, I think that's discriminatory against metal fishers.
But yeah, I mean, one of the ones I was watching the other day, they pulled a hand grenade out, which was dated to like I think it was 1928 or something like that. It was in between the First and Second World War,
Sounds dangerous,
and
doesn't
they,
it?
they got it cleaned up by someone and they sold it on the internet. They made 480 quid.
I
Yeah.
reckon there's no algorithm, man. We're seeing the exact same thing.
Oh yeah, did you watch the same? Well, that's what I'm talking about. Like, so not only is it's potentially ticking those boxes of the hobby, but it's far more beneficial, and you might earn a few quid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's about
There you
showing
go.
him the
That's
light
what
and
it's
that
like.
these things exist, and there's another way. That's
I
basically it. And that's good.
For me, when I used to fish, it was obviously you'd cast your line, you'd sit there, you'd chill out, you'd be taking in the scenery and stuff, and then every now and then you'd hook a fish, and it was that bit, for me, it was the thrill of the chase, almost, for want of a better term, and that's probably what Robbie gets out of it. Then he pulls up this beautiful animal, he gets to see them and appreciate them and throw them back, and I don't feel like that now, by the way. That's how I felt at the time.
Yeah.
So that's probably the hurdle we've got with Robbie, is that he's very passionate about this, and obviously if he's got a boat and stuff, he's going out to places, and he's probably fishing for
Yeah, but Kevin,
big
isn't it
fish.
also true that some fisher folk actually emphasize the other bits of it, the calmness and
I was going to say,
being
I
in
was
nature?
literally about to say, I was the complete opposite fisherman. I actually used to get anxiety if my rod would start to move. My favourite fishing trips were the ones where nothing happened and I potentially
You just
saw
chilled out
an
in
animal
nature.
that I wouldn't usually get to see. Yeah, those were my favourite fishing trips. The times
Yeah,
if I would keep getting bites, I actually hated it. It used to fill me with anxiety.
I think
So actually, yeah, that's it. Like the sitting there and all of that, that was my favourite part, especially in nice weather, completely away from
So when
everyone and
you go
anyone.
when you go to a football match, Andy, you like a 0-0 draw, do you?
No.
you probably like the match to get called off and just sit in the stadium for an
That's
hour
Well,
and a
good.
half.
again, on that note, as silly as it sounds, so the last year and a half of me being a Aston Villa season ticket holder, and this has got nothing to do with the football club or the football, by the way, purely just because I'm not a massively social person, and we found a pub that had like a foreign channel that used to stream all the 3 o'clock games, and during the winter, I think I missed about 9 or 10 home games in a row because we would go there before the game, sit down, get comfortable, and it was just like watch it on telly. I've paid. But still watch it on telly because sitting with 3 or 4 people in a very quiet pub in the warm is much better to me than standing with 20, 30,000 in a cold, wet stadium.
Hey Andy, we'll have to have a talk about Villa Park because I used to be a engineer for a band, right? And we used to rehearse near Villa Park, but we also but that was in a pub. It might actually be the same pub. It was,
Maybe.
yeah,
I
it was
mean,
actually.
Aston's not a very big place and it's not a very nice place either. So there's not,
Well, this one was run by Sikhs, but I mean, we're talking about the 70s now, so.
in that case, then it could well be. It wouldn't have been the same pub that I sat in, but if it's potentially the same pub that's still run by Sikhs, then I know exactly which pub you're talking about.
All right, well, there you go.
Yeah, it still exists. or did exist. I haven't actually been to a Villa game in a number of years now, probably 6 years, 7 years.
I remember one of the band members asked the guy why he didn't cut his hair off, and he said because God gave me the hair, and it's the very same reason why I don't cut my dick off.
Fair enough. Did they feel the same about like their fingernails and stuff?
I can't remember if the conversation went that way.
Yeah, I suppose that's an interesting
we,
point. See, at the moment, my hair's an absolute mess. I haven't had it cut for months, and every time, because it really bothers my mum. You see, she's got like this worry about like how you look and all this sort of stuff. So I just keep telling her I'm not having my hair cut until you go vegan, because I don't care. I don't care if my hair grows down to my ass, but it'll bother her. It bothers her right now.
Your hair can't even get out of your cap. What are you talking about?
That's why I always wear one, because my hair's a mess. It really is. It's quite long now, and I don't have a style or anything, so I just kind of put a hat on and it's done.
Okay.
Andy's actually Rapunzel. He just rolls it all up. And tucks
It's
it under
not
his
quite
hand.
that bad, but every time I go round there, I take my hat off and do like a mosh or whatever and wave it all round, and my mum gets a bit sad.
It's like one of those dolls that you can wind it back into. Yeah?
It's not great in this hot weather, I'll be honest.
It's like the next time he's on live and he's got like a Rastafarian hat on, and that's because
Yeah,
that's how to
it's
hold it
kind of
all
way
in.
down, yeah. It's not quite that bad now. In fairness, it's like shoulder length.
It's when Andy starts doing No Woman No Cry that we'll have to be worried.
I might get tired of me to braid it, actually. Do you think she will? She likes doing that, don't she? Spend an hour sitting there turning it into dreads. No, I told my mum all she's got to do is make some changes in her life, and I'll go and get it cut. It's real simple.
Well, it's not cool for white people to have dreads, of course.
Of course, that would be the only reason that I'd want them.
Yeah, I brushed mine started falling out, but yeah, I realized how uncomfortable I felt after walking around a strange city with them for a day, and I was like, yeah, I don't like the looks I'm getting.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because of the I mean, every culture appropriates other cultures. It's just that some that push buttons more than others. I think really that's what it is there.
Yeah.
Because to be fair, when it comes to dreadlocks, any culture where you had people with tight knit curls would eventually lock up. But it's like things like eyeliner. It's like obviously that's like Egyptian. And there's all sorts of other things that we all do as well. Like even tattoos, it's technically cultural appropriation. Even if they're not a particular style. Tattooing.
Okay.
Certain tribes tattoo. And that's where it originated from, and that's where it kind of came from, and that's kind of, I suppose it's stuck through
It's
the ages.
cultural appropriation. You know when people take their willy bins out, but like sometimes if they take two out at a time, they'll drag two behind them. But it's the ones that put one in front and one behind. That's appropriation of Egypt, isn't it?
Mm.
Oh, we could. Oh man, you're opening up a can of worms. 30 minutes after we promised to sign off.
You're right.
What about cultural appreciation? It's like this is the thing. That's like there's something
suppose
so hypocritical about people that talk about the whole cultural appropriation thing. Not.
But I
I've got to be
suppose,
careful digging a hole in this one, but
the thing you need to remember is that you've got an entire nation or race of humans who have been oppressed by I'm not saying one group of people, but you've got a race of people who have been oppressed by white people historically, and then the white people are all starting to use their culture for their own ends, and it's like I can understand why people would be they would provoke an emotional response, because it's like you've took everything from us, let us have this.
but everyone historically has been oppressed at some stage. This is the thing. Like literally nearly every race, every culture has been oppressed by somebody else. England, the Vikings came. Ireland, goodness me, Ireland. Do you know what I
Everyone
mean?
came,
It's
I
like,
think, to Ireland, didn't they, at one point?
sorry?
Hang on, yeah, I was about to say, we're talking about history. I mean, if we're talking about England, for example, I think they fucking oppressed the entire world for centuries before the
England,
Vikings
goodness me,
existed.
yeah.
So, yeah.
But like literally everyone at some stage has been oppressed. So then it all
But
goes
yeah,
into the
but I
conversation
suppose
about how far
the
back do you want to
difference
go?
is this oppression, for the most part, has been very marginalised by a very select few people, whilst the rest of it were victims of it. I mean, even those. I mean, you could argue that Hitler was oppressed at some point of his life. It doesn't excuse the
Yeah.
oppression that he,
Mhm.
So,
And a lot of it was fairly recent in history as well, whereas the Vikings was like it's barely even historical
yes,
fact, if you
and yeah,
will.
even with all that said, I mean, history's always been written by the victors, so we only have that anyway to believe. For all we know, the most tyrannical people won the wars all the time, won the battles, and they wrote history, or
Yeah,
they silenced anyone who wrote anything to the contrary. I mean, there's
I
been
suppose that's
plenty of crusades documented where thousands and thousands of texts were ruined or destroyed, and history was completely written off the map. So
yeah.
we don't even know.
No,
It's all.
but I think there's a difference. There's a difference in, oh, do you know what? That's beautiful. I'd love to wear that. I'm going to wear that. Or that's hilarious. I'm going to wear that for Halloween. There
Yeah.
needs to be a distinction there. There's
And
there's the appreciation side, which you're celebrating another person's culture. You're not humiliating it or mocking it like on a Halloween costume with Native American feathers in your head. I can understand why someone would find that offensive, 100%. However, if you've visited somewhere in Africa and you're very much admiring a particular dress that's full of colors and everything, then you're admiring that, you're appreciating that. It's not coming from a malicious place. I don't genuinely see the issue with that. That's me though, man. Like I don't know.
so I'm about to.
Oh, he's gone.
Didn't hear the rest of that.
I
Yeah,
think his
I
battery
suppose
died.
the context of those two situations are different, though. I mean, if you're going to dress up for something like Halloween as say a Native American, then you're using the idea that there's something either to mock or scary about that costume, which is why you pick it. Otherwise, it'd just be normal dress, right? So
Mhm.
I suppose that would the context would be the oppression. You're playing on a stereotype.
Right. But to say to somebody who's genuinely seen the beauty of a particular item of clothing and
Yeah,
appreciates it and say, listen,
I
oh, you're
don't
you're
disagree with it.
culturally
I suppose
appropriating.
we're just still talking about cultural speciesism until that's potentially sort of like
Yeah.
corrected. A lot of this other stuff won't change, will it? Like it's just the way it is.
I need you guys to talk to more vegans who aren't white. This is atrocious. This is a live stream. Like anyone can join. I'll talk to somebody if they're purple. I don't mind.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to stay on, Lou, but I'm going to end this any moment.
I've
I normally
procrastinated
end
the
it at
entire
10 on
evening. I was supposed to
Saturday
clean up the
anyway,
entire house.
so you're more than welcome to jump on. But yeah, and so unless anyone's got anything further to say, I'll go till 22, which is 2 minutes.
No worries, man. Joanna, no one can see that you appreciate it, that it's their culture. Joanna, to a degree, look, if I'm walking down the street, just imagine for a minute that I'm walking down the street dressed seriously as somebody from Kenya. If I'm walking down the street dressed like that, then surely I'd like to think that it's because I like wearing that piece of
But the
clothing.
problem is when we're talking about like cultural speciesism, the potential has been they're so oppressed for so long that everyone else would view that you were doing that as some sort of mockery.
No, but
That's
you're
the issue.
you're
You may well be doing it for 100% legit reasons, but everyone else's interpretation is the problem. That's the cultural speciesism that needs tackling. Because it wouldn't matter what your reasons were, everyone else that looked at you would either laugh at you or think that you were being racist.
But in that case, on the flip side of that, so what if I see somebody who's not white and from Texas wearing a cowboy hat? Is that a valid argument too?
Oh no, but we're looking at it from a different point of view because hopefully we've now escaped this cultural speciesism, and we see we're not seeing the issue in it. But most people, yeah, I'm sure that probably would happen in certain places.
Wow, damn man, people just need to start being nicer to each other.
No, it's just about basic respect. That's the problem, and it stems into what you said earlier about the selfish mentality that's been ingrained into everyone for the past few centuries. You
Mhm.
know, Even the whole evolutionary theory of survival of the fittest, one, it was something that Darwin never said, and two, it never meant what people think it meant. It literally meant the best to survive and adapt to their environment. It's not the strongest or the hardest or the toughest or any of the shit that gets perpetuated. But that's it. You know, it's all about me. It's all about my survival. Fuck everyone else mentality. That's real recent, really, in terms of our history.
Yeah, I get that.
But it all stems back
Survival
into
of
the
the
like,
fittest.
conversation about famine that we talked about earlier. If people are more worried about this person's religion or this person's race or this person's council tax allowance, and they're not going to look at what the fundamental problems are.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. Can I just respond to Joanna here?
Yeah, cool.
So you're saying I am a person of color, but we can see that, but we don't see that. We see it as appropriation. So here's the thing. Let me tell you my predicament here, right? So if you were to look at me, I am very, very Caucasian, white guy, blue eyes, etc. You wouldn't know though that one half of my family are all North African, the other half are Irish and Polish who escaped. So Irish people who were oppressed by the British and Polish who were oppressed by Nazis in Germany. I don't have a one singular identity. I can't say I am one thing. So if I was to dress up as somebody from my grandparents or my dad's side, which is from north of Africa, or if I was to dress up, well, in like, maybe there was a fashion back in the day in Poland and I was to dress up like that, somebody can automatically then come to me and be like, hey, poking me on the chest, being like, why are you appropriating this culture? And then we're having do you know what I mean? It's like there's antagonism there that doesn't need to be there. So you're looking at color, and that I think is, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a complicated position, but I
It's
can definitely understand why. You know, again, it's just for the same reason that people get so pent up when you try and make a comparison between a dog and a pig. Like, as you mentioned yourself earlier, you're dealing with however many years they've been alive minus 10, and that's how many years they've been indoctrinated into this way of thinking. Even more so if you come from a cultural background. It's, you know, it probably started before you were 10.
This is it.
But yeah, on that note, thank you everyone for joining us. Unless anyone's got anything else they want to quickly add, then we'll be at the same time next week at 8:00.
Have an amazing evening, Joanna. If ever you jump on my live, let's have this conversation. I'm more than happy to talk about that with you. Like, it's, you know, you're still perceived at white at first glance. Okay, but so then we're going back to perception though, and that is an automatic judgment on people.
Right, in the same way that it's an automatic judgment on dogs and pigs. That's what I'm saying. It's all
Right.
cultural speciesism. It's all the same problem that we're trying to counter. But people don't connect the dots. And they never will if they only think about it as food or anything else, which is why it's like the oppression is really the important factor, because it will make them start realizing that, yeah, this actually extends. And I don't do this already in most of my life. So, yeah, on that note, thank you, everyone.
Mate, have an amazing evening, dude.
And you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later. Thank you.
Take care. Bye, Roger.